Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Today is Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. It is now 5:30
Welcome to
p.m.
WebEx. Press 1 to be
and I'd like to
connected to your
call the City
meeting.
of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Fairclough Staggers, Vice Mayor Guzman. Here. Mayor Losner.
I'm here. Mr. Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have any.
Very good. All right. Our first item tonight is presentation under car number 3782, the Homestead Sports Complex Phase 1 design. Mr. Manager, I think we
Thank
have
you,
some
Mayor.
guests.
Bermillo Ajamil and Partners has provided staff with several options on building colors treatments for the Homestead Sports Complex Phase 1. Staff is seeking direction from Mayor and Council on preferred color options for the Homestead Sports Complex buildings. And B&A is here. Yes.
Good evening and welcome back.
Good evening. Randy Hollingworth, Bermeo Hamil, and I have James Bowers here, who is the architect working on this project. And I'm going to give you a little overview of the project before he goes into the building, just so you have the context of the site and what we're doing under this Phase 1 contract for the city. It's an exciting project, great opportunity for the city. This is the master plan that was developed, the entire site, with all the facilities over the long-range program of developing this project for a multi-sport facility for the city. And our assignment was to develop the first phase of the project, which is here in the yellow outlined area down in the southwest corner. That, I think we can go to a blow-up of that. And that includes a track, soccer field in the interior of the track, a synthetic turf soccer field, which would be all lit. We have parking that we're building for this facility to the north, you can see at the top. There's also a restroom, concession, and maintenance building that James will be presenting to you. And that's sort of the focus tonight, to look at that and show you some of the options for colors and materials for the building. And I will zoom into that area. You can see here, this is the construction. We're developing the design development drawings at this point, so we're still fairly early in the process. We're not developing the full construction drawings yet. But the building that James is going to address right now is between the soccer and track area and the parking lot, so that when people arrive, they'll pass this building going into the facility. And then I'll turn it over to you, James.
Thank you. Good evening. So what we have here is a three-part program. We have the concession building, we have the storage, and we have the restrooms. Concession will face both the park itself and the field. We have the storage facility, which is basically for maintenance, carts, also with access to the field and to the park itself. And then we have restrooms, again, one on either side. And so we're separating the field itself from the park. And so with that, we have approximately 2,400 square feet all in. The concession is about 400 or 500 square feet. Storage and restrooms are within the 950 to 1,000 square feet range. And so what we wanted to do is we really wanted to enhance this building. We wanted to make it colorful. We wanted to make it intuitive for the users of the park and the field. And so what we did is we took these three components. We have the restrooms, as you can see on the elevation here on the north elevation. We have the restrooms on the left side. On the left side, we have the central portion, which is the storage facility in red. This is a metal panel, corrugated metal panel, and then on the right side we have the concession stand. And so we wanted to embellish this with branding, and so we want to make sure that anybody within the park and within the facilities can look at the building and say, oh, okay, there's the concession, there's the restroom, that's where I need to go. And so we wanted to make it very, very intuitive, very playful, very colorful, with a combination of colors and textures to be able to make it impactful for the users. This is the west elevation, looking at it from the field itself. The white area there on the bottom is the fence between both the facility and the park. This is the south elevation, again, very intuitive. If individuals, users of the park or the field, have a need to go to the restrooms, it's pretty straightforward. No need to ask any questions. And so here we have a view to the northwest. This is an aerial view on the backside, or basically where we are standing, looking at the building, is the surface parking area. On the left, we have the restrooms. Center portion, we have the storage, and then we have the concession, the food concession stand on the right, closest to the field. Now, there's an opportunity here for branding as well. So in this case, we have Let's Do This on the storage building. We can have Homestead Sports Complex as well, and that's in the views ahead. And so what you're going to see here is just multiple aerials throughout that building. We're standing right now in the field area looking at the concession. You can see the access to the park on the bottom side and to the concession. And so we have two openings within the concession stand to serve both the park and the field. Again, this is looking south. We have the three components. This is from the surface parking area, what we call a land view. And so pretty straightforward, nothing too complex, but we wanted to make it, again, very, very playful. This is a view from the west. This is on the right side, you have the entrance to the field, and you have access to the concession at that location as well. Again, this is within the field area. Looking back towards the building, you have the concession on the left, bless you, where you have access as well to it. So again, very playful. And so what we were asked to do with this building is to look at different components of it in terms of materiality. And so right now we have, from left to right, we have a smooth stucco finish, painted with reveals. That would be the restrooms. The center portion, we have a corrugated metal panel, different tones of color. And then the food concession area is also a smooth stucco finish with a couple of reveals in two different colors. And so you'll notice very, very quickly that we have now changed the materials of the complex, right? Of the buildings. We now have a different branding component in front of it. The restrooms remain the same blue, different tones of blue and the smooth stucco finish. We manipulated the red to have a different tone of gray in this case. And then the food concession stand, we have it in a goldish color. And so again, we are now looking at different materials, different colors, make it a little bit playful for the users. And so we have options here in terms of how we approach this building. In this case, the restrooms, we went with different monochrome tones, grays, and blacks and whites. The storage facility, we went with more of a goldish color, different tones as well, but still a corrugated metal panel. And again, the food, we also went a little bit monochrome in this case. Now, this one's a little bit different. We went with a different panel system for the storage facility. This can be what we call a rain screen system, which is basically an application on top of a CMU or a block wall. And again, it can be from a wood tone panel, which is a veneer, or an aluminum panel, steel panel, etc. And so there's different options as to the materiality of this particular project. Again, our approach was always to make this a very playful, very active project. And so with this, we give you 4 different options in terms of materials, in terms of how you approach the building itself, from more of a colorful, playful option to more of a subdued, natural type material on the facades. And so with that, we finished the presentation in terms of the different types of materiality of this project. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. I want, for the record, to note that Councilwoman Avila has joined us during the very beginning part of your presentation. So let's open it up first to questions or comments from members of the council. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that presentation, sir. I wanted to ask I particularly like to brand Homestead Sports Complex. However, the part off to the right, is that just kind of hanging out there, you know, where it's like complex, it's just hanging out there?
Absolutely. We wanted to overhang it, the food and the concession stand. And so you'll see that it's just above the overhang of the food and concession building. But again, we wanted to make that, we wanted to really accentuate it.
Okay. And are there any seating area for people at the concession? Any tables there, or that was specifically left out because you don't want people to sit there?
Right. So we can definitely include it. Randy and his team will definitely. I'm sorry.
There's 2 outdoor patios by the concession that we have little plazas with a tree in the middle that we would plan to put tables with umbrellas and things like that. So there's definitely seating both inside the field area and outside. The idea of the fence cutting through is that you could then secure an event at the field, and if you are charging admission for some type of a small concert or an event or something, people would then go through the fence and would have access to the concession inside and outside. So we had to sort of duplicate things to provide that dual capability. So when you close the gate, the whole thing wasn't closed down. You can have a concession open on a weekend. Maybe there's not a special event going on at the sports field.
Okay. Okay, great. I like the colors. It's the closest we're going to get to art, anything artsy in that complex. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Ms. Sorrentino might argue with you on that one. We're going to have that conversation later. Next, Councilwoman, sure, dive in.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for my tardiness and missing the first part of your presentation. And maybe it was said, what's the deadline to make this decision?
So we're obviously hoping for a little bit of feedback to get us on our way tonight. Of course, if your direction is, you know, we like some elements from each of these, we're going to come back to you and show you another product. This is not the last time you're going to see us.
It's not do or die tonight. Okay. All right, good. So then 2 things. Was there any consideration for any maybe second-story seating under AC? Is there an opportunity to create more of a higher viewing level? Because I would think that the views will be pretty beautiful on an elevated platform.
Sorry, I think you said, is there an opportunity for a view from atop the building?
On a second story, so whether it's, can we do a 2-story building and allow for indoor seating?
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. So we can, no doubt. We can have a second story. That's not an issue. When we contemplate a second story, we are now looking at means of egress. In other words, life safety, stairs at a minimum 2 levels. Typically, you would have at least 1 elevator or a ramp.
So it's more expensive.
It's more expensive.
Absolutely.
I didn't want to.
Would the additional seating and it being indoor and more of a premium option be attractive for concerts and being a venue, and so you can possibly attract more revenue for types of events? Is that a possibility to explore?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
We
so
can most definitely. look
was it
into
considered? Was it
Not-
already
not
discussed?
in this case.
No. Okay.
Not in this case.
That's fine.
but
I'd
we
like for
can
that to
most
just be
definitely-
considered
And,
and brought back.
Sorry, if I may, we've already received a preliminary cost estimate with just the programming that we've seen here, and we're already coming in higher than what we had thought starting this project in 2020, 2021. I think with this addition, we would be looking at several additional millions of dollars in investment. I think in an elevator, we're looking at probably, a minimum of $300,000 to $500,000 just in an elevator.
Okay.
So just wanted to
I
put that out
understand.
there.
I think just for the purposes of the exercise and identifying what opportunities we could attract and how it could help pay itself off in the long range, but obviously costs are prohibitive in those kinds of cases. So just for thoughts and consideration and for brainstorming. With regards to the overall look and appeal and design concept, I'd like for this to maybe go out for public comment and do a survey and let the people, our residents who are going to be enjoying this park, kind of vote if that's an option, whether it's a 30-day survey that is like on social media that we can promote and they can click to vote kind of thing. This park is for the people and paid by the people, and I think it should be designed by the people. So if there's an opportunity time-wise to incorporate that somehow, I would appreciate it.
We haven't talked about, we have a program which I think we've used here, the survey program. Did we use it in our presentation? We can put that online. So people can actually see the 4 options and vote online. We can leave it open, and then we can tally all the results. So you don't have to have a meeting or anything, but you have to have some forum in which to put it out.
Yeah, Councilwoman, if that's the will of council, we could definitely do a survey.
And then just for my own personal input here, I like the brown building in option 4. I like the blue building in option 1. And I'm kind of open, or the gray from option 2. So I don't see that as an option, but if that could be an
We
option.
could definitely,
Make that option 5 on your survey, but that's,
yes.
I love the various colors and concepts, and I do think that we should capitalize on the opportunity to make it revenue producing. And the Homestead Sports Complex, I love that, that we can brand it, but if we can also sell the name out. So it could be, I don't know,
I
Lone
mean, that would
Depot.
be a council decision if this is, we want to see if this is Nike Field. Sure.
Exactly.
We're open to it if that's the direction of council.
If that's going to bring us a check to help bring in non-assessment revenue for our budget, especially for our parks and recs, why would we say no? But I'm open to hearing the argument. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Ready, Councilwoman Fairclough-Staggers?
Yes. I've just been over here kind of marinating. I'm a big dreamer, big vision type person, so it's hard for me to look at things in bits and pieces. So this is like a slice of the pie when I need the whole pie. So it's kind of hard for me to weigh in when I'm only looking at a small piece of it. I like to see everything, all of the phases, and how this will mesh into all of the phases, if that makes sense.
So their contract award is only for design of phase 1. I know we have some of the master plan conceptuals. I don't know if in doing a rendering of this, we can show some of that in the background, if that's possible.
Yeah, the thing is, the overall project, if you're talking about the slice, it's just the building, for example. There's going to be a whole pile of buildings in this project. I think the one thing that we would look at, that this would be setting the standard for the project. If you're going to build this as a restroom concession, and we have 3 or 4 in the project, don't we? Yeah. It would be likely that you would want to do the same vernacular, the same style, maybe different colors in different places for different locations. There'll be variations because the concession may be bigger, you may not need maintenance, so they'll all look different. And then you've also got a community center, which is a whole different scale. But none of those have been designed yet. They're on the plan, but there's no designs for them. Until you get to that phase, I don't think you'll be carrying the plan any further than it is now.
Well, for me, how I process things is it's difficult. So are you saying like this would be like the catalyst for everything else?
Yes, so that's why it's really important for us to have your input on this one particular building, because like Randy said, this would kind of set the standard for our other buildings in the park.
I'm not sure the overall look would be a catalyst in my mind. But if I had to weigh in, I definitely like the branding concept. I like Homestead Sports Complex because it gives it a sense of place where we are and playing up on our name. I agree with, or I understand that it can generate revenue with the whole naming piece, but I like that sense of place. Looking at the color scheme, I'm a red girl. I was thinking red will retire when I retire. You know, I'm having infatuation with red, so option one definitely popped out to me. Very attractive, that color, like artsy, like you mentioned, and we want to get more into that. So color, for me, would be option one. Definitely not the mono. It's boring for this place. I like mono at my house, but I like it at the sports complex. And I like the branding concept. I like the different materials that you are proposing, but I think something's missing. Something is missing here. It doesn't stand out to me like, wow, this is it. Something's missing. I think we should consider, you mentioned like seating options around the concession stand,
There's an outdoor.
because that's important,
You can see
especially
one there
with
on the right
families.
there. There's one outside the concession outside the fence, and then there's another patio on the other side of the concession that's inside the fence. So we'd have tables there, and people can buy something and go and sit there and eat. Or go back to the stands. If they're in the field, they're probably gonna go back to the bleachers and sit in the bleachers.
Yeah, but definitely an option to eat there.
Yeah.
You have a 2-year-old, I don't want to go get food and then have to walk somewhere
Exactly.
else when she wants to eat right there.
We'll provide some there, yes.
So definitely seating there. But I'm not sure I have the wow factor yet.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you for your
You're
input.
welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. So, kind of piggybacking on both of these conversations, I'm looking at more of the priority stuff, right? In this phase one build out, we simply get a soccer field. If we move further to the south and go to the southernmost portion, we're going to get 4 soccer fields and pickleball. So I don't know how the phasing was structured and who decided that this is what we needed first. I'm more about the amenity portion of it. How many amenities can we get for the bang at the beginning versus 1 soccer field and a concession stand and some restrooms? Is all I really see there. So it's more about the amenities that we can bring out sooner than later. In that southern portion where you have the 4 soccer fields and the pickleball area, I mean, there's a lot of people that are crying for pickleball right now, and it's not here. We don't have, I don't think, any pickleball courts yet in the city that are city-owned or operated, right? So that's kind of my thought process. I do like the thought process on maybe selling name rights to the park. I mean, that could be, you know, a big thing, right? The old Joe Robbie Stadium is called, I don't even know what it's called. I call it Joe Robbie, but they get $2 million a year for naming rights on that building. Not that we're going to get $2 million a year, but if we got $100,000 a year, that helps with a lot of maintenance in that park. And eventually, when we get to that concession stand, is that going to be something that we offer out and lease out to a private vendor who's going to run that and keep it open while the parks are open? Because if you have a concession stand that nobody mans, what good is it? So that's another, you know, aspect of it too. So I think the phasing, we have to go phasing because we can't afford to build all at one time, as my colleague at the end mentioned. But I think if we can hit more amenities in phase one and bring more to the park at the beginning versus just 1 soccer field, I think would also help. That's my opinion only.
And Councilman, the thought process was we wanted to go after the low-hanging fruit, right? We know with this phase one, funding-wise, it's going to be easier to get, I think, the $7 to $9 million in funding, so at least we can get started off at a running pace, especially working with the high school right there and being able to incorporate the track as well as the soccer field in the center. But that's why we're doing it in the phases, because of the funding. That's a priority, the major problem that we have.
Does the funding have to be specific for soccer field? I mean, are we getting funding or grants or something that says we have to build a soccer field, concession stands, and bathrooms?
So Right, remember when we went out to bid for this project, we had come up with these phases based on funding and also based on kind of order in the park of where you would start to build infrastructure. As, you know, the roads and everything to reach the other parts of the park. So what BA has a contract for is this scope that was, you know, what that was approved by council. And so if we were going to go back to the drawing board, we would be expending additional funds to amend their contract. This space, right, it has a soccer field and a track, but it's envisioned more as a flex space, right? So you have an event like the Seafood Festival or a concert or some other kind of event, you can have that here in, you know, kind of a controlled area, fenced off, allows for ticketing. So it's not just, you know, a soccer field that's going to get used for soccer practices and games. It's more than that.
Okay, so that leads me to another question then. We're going to put a synthetic field there, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so we're going to let people trample all over a synthetic field with food, concessions, and all these different activities. And who's going to be gearing towards that wear and tear? I mean, it doesn't seem logical to invest that kind of money and then let people erect tents up on this field that's synthetic, right? That means artificial.
That's
right?
correct.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have this as a field that's going to be able to do multiple things on it. So that doesn't make any sense to me. But I'll listen to the rest of the presentation, but it just doesn't sound normal to me. Thank you, Mayor, for the time.
Thank you. Councilwoman, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you. With regards to the building types, what I like about option 4 is the way that the paneling is kind of like, what do you call it, cross-stitched? I don't know. But I love the red color, but I like so if that's an option where it doesn't have to be brown, it can be red, but that type of pattern. Councilwoman, are you good with the pattern? All right, perfect. So, thank you. And yeah, when you're talking about synthetic turf in an area where we're going to have it multi-use, it does bring to light some concerns. So you'll have to look at how you're going to maintain that and mitigate those issues. If it's meant to be dual purpose now and then more so, trying to think. Yeah, we're going to have to think about that a little longer. With regards to the phasing, the infrastructure, obviously, you know, if we can prioritize a different part of the different phase in order to get more amenities sooner rather than later, I'm absolutely in support of that. So if there's a possibility to do temporary access roads to get to the better phase and, you know, offset some of those costs, that's, you know, it's more service for our residents much quicker versus doing the, you know, the concert / soccer field for too long of a period of time. I mean, that's going to add costs if you have to do temporary roads and then redo them later, but if it's a possibility, please look into that. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I may just add one more thing to that too as well. You mentioned the Seafood Festival going inside the ring of that field. I don't know that you could put that Seafood Fest
That was going to be my question
today
in terms of area.
based
No.
on the size of this Seafood Fest, and it's only in its 4th or 5th year, and it's already attracting, you know, 20,000 plus people. So I don't even think that they could hold the Seafood Festival inside of that field. So just
You're
a side
correct.
note.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all, and it should probably come as a surprise to most of you and our regular viewers, maybe strike some fear into your hearts. But I pretty much agree with most everything that has been said by my colleagues tonight. And let me put some of it a little different spin on some of it. It was suggested that we put this out to the community for them to weigh in. Well, let me back that up even further. And if we're to share the blame, let's share the blame. The look and the design of the buildings should have been done with public input, not your vision, not your dream. I have this phrase about architects running amok, Exhibit A, okay? So, you know, I feel we have not really gotten off on a great start. I would echo Councilwoman Fairclough Stagger's comments that I'm just not getting that wow factor. I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy from, and I understand that we need storage, we need large restrooms and concessions, and this one is kind of center park and well located. I get that, but for me, it's kind of boxy. I question the advisability of having a flat roof, that seems to always engender roof failures early than normal. To echo some of your concerns lately, Councilwoman, maybe we needed to draw from our agricultural and rural heritage and culture in the design of these buildings. I am, you know, aside from the fact that I think that the look and style should have come from community input first, not here's four, pick one. These do not inspire me. I would think that, you know, the name Homestead Sports Complex would be more for signage out front and at the entrance, with the opportunity to sponsor or brand. And then you also have other branding opportunities on these walls of whatever these buildings look like, and maybe carry that Homestead Sports Complex signage to be sort of a backdrop to soccer team photos. You know, when the kids are out there lined up on the field, that's not necessarily, for me, a requirement for those buildings. And I agree. To me, the gray and some of the textures and colors are just trendy. I'm looking for something that will set us apart and will stand the test of time, not look very dated just 10 years from now. So I'm not even in like with any of these options. But to piggyback on what one of you said, I want to go back to the manager or Mr. Good. Someone asked about the time sensitivity. Is it correct to say that we're really not? Because whatever phase one consists of, we do not yet have money in hand to begin construction on phase one. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We do not yet have full funding for this phase. We're awaiting on several grant awards. And so, yeah, you're correct. We would not be prepared to turn dirt tomorrow.
All right, so we are not under the time gun at all to perhaps go back and do this the right way and invite public input. And I don't recall ever being queried by B&A, and I don't know if the rest of you were, as to what our potential visions were for the look. I mean, some of the play amenities, I know we've all had those discussions individually and as a group. And to go a step further, clearly I think it would be my perception that whatever building look we choose at a point in the future, that's going to be the look for the entire park, whether it be the performance stage, the recreational center, other bathrooms, other concession stands, whatever that may be. So in that regard, I think we need to also be looking at, okay, if we're picking these buildings and whatever these different looks you may bring back to us in the future, you need to be bringing us benches, you need to be bringing us light fixtures, you need to be bringing us garbage can styles, so that we've got the whole package at once and the community knows and everything fits. So I'd kind of like to go back to the drawing board and get some community input. And I think Cutler Bay did a really nice job with how they evolved their town center. that they had drawings, and we don't necessarily need to go into the models, but detailed drawings of 4 or 5 dramatically different looks and designs for what their new town center and city square would look like, and I would like us to do that. Quite frankly, I missed the ball somewhere that this was already underway without our input or community input. This is, the vision of these men and their teams, and it's not necessarily our vision. And I think that to this point, we've gone about this all wrong. And one more thing, I was kind of under the impression that we, in phase 1, we're going to redo in synthetic turf at least some of the much-needed soccer fields, so to provide the amenities for current. And I think there's going to, and my mistake, okay? And Councilman Roth hit on an interesting point, and no, that the interior of that ring is not sufficient for even the first seafood festival. I think that probably more contemplated up into this big yard up along Muxo Boulevard, kind of in the center of the drawing. So, if we don't have the money in hand, we're not under the gun. I think we need to, in fairness and respect for the community, I can support going back to the drawing board and coming up with some dramatically different options and visions for what this park, for what the bricks and mortar of this park are going to look like.
Thank you, Mayor, and we hear you loud and clear. Remember, this is the first step, this is the first rendering, and that's the purpose of this presentation here, to hear the input from each of you, to then B&A to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, I heard Councilwoman Faircloth, Councilman Roth, and come up with the different renderings. Now, I don't mind going to the public and asking them their input, but I think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think they need to come back with different ideas. You guys look at them and shortlist them, and maybe then go to the public and see from the short list of items. Because, if we go ask 84,000 people what you want to see, you're going to get 84,000 answers. And so I think if you guys control it.
Narrow it down to maybe 4 or 5 distinct options upon
Absolutely.
consultation with staff and council, and then take it public. I would like to see us go there. One more question, really quick. Mr. Good touched on how prices, and I think when you referred to a dramatic increase in prices, I know overall, but you were specifically referencing phase 1.
Yes, that's correct.
And what are we looking at today?
So we had originally considered this phase to be somewhere in the 7.5, 7.9 range. An initial cost estimate came back at about $12 million. That does include a hefty contingency because we're not very far along in the drawings, and obviously not knowing yet your direction as far as finishes and everything, but it's been a dramatic increase.
And if you could, Mr. Manager, if you have a line item so that we can kind of see where those big items of expense are, so that we can also talk about doing some value engineering and getting the biggest bang for the buck to get something done here sooner rather than later. But, I appreciate that, and thank you all for what you've done here. But
Mayor, I just have-
yes, Councilman Roth.
I'm sorry, just one more thought, and this may not mean much, but when we look at this map here, and I'm just thinking solely the Seafood Festival at this point. We're not going to build a park around a seafood festival. We're not going to do that. But when you look at this map on the north side, from the access road off of Alex Muxo, from the eastern side all the way to the western side, that's usually used for parking only. And then the festival, and I'm just trying to visualize this because I've never seen it in aerial, really encompasses most of where these future baseball and softball fields are, right? So that's basically the footprint.
Those are the existing fields. Those
Right.
can't be moved.
Okay, so that's kind of the footprint of what the Seafood Festival will need in the future also. So that may be something to think
Right.
about. Like, we're struggling now with the growth of the rodeo, right?
Exactly. We'll have that conversation very soon, too, I'm
Right,
sure.
so, I mean, the city's only so big, and we can only fit so many
That's
of
right.
these things in there, so.
That's right.
But I just wanted to say that
Right.
they've already taken up a big portion of that
Yes.
footprint as it is now with what they've got, so.
And just while we're on that subject, Mr. Manager, if Pablo, what's the footprint of the Seafood Festival now, the fields that we use? The grassed area that we use now, more or less.
So the largest baseball field that's facing north, that's the current existing field. They use basically from that field south to about, I'd say, half of the soccer fields down low. It's tough to see it without seeing it on an existing aerial, but because that soccer field down below is the other baseball field that's existing. They use all the space in between all of that. Where the track and field is going to be is nobody uses that right now. That's the Keys Gate PE fields.
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
In the future, I noticed that this dotted white line is separating the accident prevention zone. So anything of a seafood festival type of event, is that going to be allowed in that dotted area?
Inside the APC, no.
All right, so
Isn't it now?
In the
Move on.
existing fields. Well, I mean, they come to the entrance.
so if we're thinking about doing events, we might as well start
With that bright line.
considering how we're going to do that in the future, because that's obviously one of the reasons that we're doing this park to begin with, too. It's a multi-use complex.
No. We're saying that we want it to be able to truly have a multi-use and frequently used facility for the kind of money that we're talking about doing here.
Understood. That's the plan.
So, council, do we want to send them back to the drawing board along what we discussed about some, talk to each of us about what we'd like to see, what that wow factor would be, and we can narrow it down and then put it out to the public. I mean, again, we're not under a real time crunch here due to the financial issues.
Absolutely, Mayor, and if I may, include this concept as one of your options, like we've discussed, and, even though I came in towards the latter end of your presentation, I can see and I could hear the passion that you have towards the project, and even though, there's always difference in opinions for design and concept, I work really well with having something to start with. So being able to see this and kind of build my vision on top of it, and we can modify it to make it right, that's exactly what this meeting is for. So I appreciate your effort. Let's take it to the drawing board, like he's saying, and let's get the community input to make it really ours. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So that I
Yes.
can kind of help sum up for for our folks, kind of what I've heard tonight. So obviously, wow factor. That's going to be subjective, but we're gonna deliver. I've heard that some ideas for pitched roofs, a more agrarian look. Are we otherwise happy with this kind of soft, modern look? Do you want to see something like, a Victorian version of this?
Agrarian is not necessarily soft modern.
Well,
If I could jump in here, I think it's probably better for B&A to meet with each of you individually with this original concept, and you guys give them the input there, then they can go back to the drawing boards and come back with something else.
Thank you. Again, thank you. Good night. All right. Appreciate it. Very, very productive conversation. Thank you all. Okay. Go ahead, let's get Mr. Kraft a microphone. Use your time wisely. It might be the only phone you get tonight.
Of course, I will use it wisely. I have a question. Wouldn't it be smart with seating on top of the building so people could enjoy a drink while they was watching the activities? For instance, over at the track field or at the football, then they could sit up there and have a snack or a drink if they could sit on the top. One thing. Handicap accessibility, would that be there? So people in a wheelchair or a scooter or crunches or what have you not. And then question number 3, the concerts and the events and all those things, would that be managed by a private vendor, or will it be Homestead that will go in and be the vendor in order to attract people who want to play or perform? And then I would be asking, those proposals they are asked to come forward with 3 different versions, wouldn't it be smart to have them 3D printed and have them as an exhibition here at City Hall in the lobby so people could come there and see them? 3D printing is not that expensive anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. You know, a lot of things you mentioned are built in, and we did have the discussion about second-story seating. And yes.
Zach, can we try to get the Cybrarium to do some 3D printing for us? I know that we have one there, right? Just ask and see if we can get that. I like the idea.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item. It's a presentation by staff of car number 3803, our code compliance presentation, tab 2. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Prior to the holidays, Council had requested that code enforcement do a presentation of how their processes work, as well as what major challenges they have. So we have code enforcement here, and Captain DeJohn will be doing the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff, and guests here. As requested, we are putting forth our presentation on code to basically give everybody an idea of what the process is and how code enforcement works. You know, it can be a tedious process. There's a lot of issues we recognize throughout the city as far as having to deal with code issues, but we do want people to understand that there is a process and that, you know, what way we're governed by code, city code, and as well as the Florida State statute. First off, we're governed by Florida State Statute 162. And what does that concern? It lays the basis for a lot of our code compliance guidelines, but specifically one of the most frequent issues that we have is regarding Florida State Statute 162.06b, which basically states that code cannot take any type of anonymous complaint. They cannot follow up on any anonymous complaint. This is in the statute. It used to be previously in years past that they could, but it was recently changed. So we have to when we receive a complaint, we have to have a name, address, and good contact information for to follow up on the complaint. Additionally, to go along with that, if somebody calls in a complaint or they send us a photograph or something like that, if the code officer goes out and they don't see the violation, they cannot cite for it. So they have to actually see the violation in order to deal with it. So along with Florida State statute, we also have our City of Homestead code ordinances to go by as well. The next step in this is the actual code compliance process. Again, once we receive a complaint, whether it's from the actual complainant or we see it's visualized or seen by the code officer. In this case, we get a complaint, we get the name, address of the complainant. If the officer goes out and they can find the violation, or they do the inspection and they find a violation, they'll go ahead and take photos of that. They'll get all the information. And at that point, once they gather up, it's not as simple as just writing a ticket at that moment. Not like when a traffic officer goes out and writes a traffic violation, and then they just move on to the next thing. They have to go back to the office and build the case. So when they go back to the office, they're doing things like researching the property information, trying to find out who the owner of the property is. If it's some sort of question about whether they have a business license, they look up on SunBiz, or they see if they have a business license with the city to be able to properly address those issues and send a potential violation or a notice of violation to the person that it's supposed to go to. When they decide they're going to do an actual violation or a notice of violation, they'll go ahead and either mail it. They'll mail it, and they'll send it regular mail and certified mail to the person who's in violation of the code. From that point, they'll get a summons to appear. Now, if they get a notice of violation, they may get a chance to clear it up before they ever get a summons to appear to the special master hearing. In some cases, if they're a repeat violator, or depending upon what it is, they'll actually have to go to a special master hearing. They'll have to respond to that. When they go to the special master hearing, of course, it's sort of like, for the people that don't know, it's sort of like being in court. Special master is, for layman's terms, sort of like a judge or a hearing officer. They'll hear the case. The special master, not code enforcement, but the special master will make the decision on whether to hold them responsible for that violation. And if they do, sometimes they give them 60, 90, or longer days to comply with the violation. They'll also could assess a fine at that moment but again, they'll give them time to either comply or they'll have to pay the fine. When the fine is issued, it's another process in itself, because if they decide not to pay the fine, a code compliance will place a lien on the residence or business itself. So from there, we have code, or the city has no real teeth as far as it goes, as far as collecting a fine. So if there's a violation and they don't pay it, we do put a lien on the residence or business itself. Just keep in mind, code compliance cites a violation and takes it through the process, but it is up to the property owner to comply with this violation. So in other words, we can write tickets all day long, and in many cases, we've had several instances where we are issuing violation notices or actual violations. They've been cited, and it's time and time and time again. We've had one property in the recent past where we had to deal with it for over 5 years. Ended up having to go to court outside a special master's hearing. It took quite a while, but the city eventually got it cleaned up at the city's cost, I do believe, to clean up that property. And the individual is back at it again, cluttering up his property, and he just recently got cited again. So it's up to them to whether they choose to comply. Some of the common violations that we do experience, and some of the, I guess, the biggest complaints that we get is issues with illegal dumping, commercial vehicles and recreational vehicles, and housing occupancy issues. When it comes to illegal dumping, part of the process is if they find a trash pile, number one, if it's not in front of somebody's residence or it's just in a sort of a common area or on the city right-of-way, they have to go through that trash pile and try to see if there's any evidence, just like a police officer might, and try to locate some evidence to where this trash pile may have came from. Sometimes people put some of their personal trash in there, and it may link it back to an address. And if they can do that, they'll start researching that address, and they'll find out who owns it, and then follow up and either issue a notice of violation or give them a violation of itself. If it's illegal dumping, that's totally different than somebody putting the trash out in front of their house. They're dumping, a lot of times illegal dumping may be construction material, landscaping material, things from different businesses, or sometimes it is coming from a residence. They're just dumping it in a common area where some other people might dump, often right in front of a sign that says no dumping. But again, they gather the evidence, search through the dumped items, determine if items left behind are for those responsible. Again, is the legal dumping site on private property or on a city right-of-way? And if, once they determine it, they can contact the property owner and/or solid waste and ask for a cleanup. You know, either way, it needs to get cleaned up. They try to get the property owner to go ahead and make them do it. Another issue that we experience is with dealing with commercial vehicles and recreational vehicles in neighborhoods or and on business properties where they shouldn't be. Commercial vehicles are permitted in the rear of a property with proper screening. In other words, you can park a dump truck, a semi-truck in somebody's backyard, in their backyard. Presumably the owners just can't be renting out your property to house other people's trucks. But somebody has a semi-truck, they could technically park it in their backyard as long as they have proper screening. Now, you know, how do you screen a semi-truck in the backyard? These are code violations that if we do see the truck in the backyard, we potentially could deal with it, but again, the code officer has to see the violation. Recreational vehicles such as RVs, that's an ongoing thing right now, I know, and I believe that there's a proposal ordinance change for that's going to be in line with what the county does. But currently, you have to have your RV in the backyard. I think it's going to change to be in line with the county to where it can be on the side, but not in the front. So you can have on the side of the house, the backyard. By no means we can't have anybody living in an RV. You know, that's they're dealing with everywhere regarding housing issues and things like that. So, you know, they can't have somebody living there, but again, code has to see that. If somebody's going in and out of their RV, they may be cleaning it, but if we get evidence that they're living there, you know, that's something that we may be able to address, but again, we have to catch them doing that.
And if I could jump in here, Captain, an important point. The code enforcement officer has to see it. And that means the code enforcement officer can't be climbing up a fence and looking over the fence. The question of drones have come up multiple times. Can't you just fly a drone over somebody's house or put your cell phone over and take pictures? You start infringing on people's rights. So code cannot do that. So just keep that in mind.
That is correct. Thank you. One of the other next issues that we deal with is housing occupancy. We see it all the time, especially it seems like it's gotten worse over the years with the housing issues, where you got multiple families living inside of one residence. You see all the cars that are parked outside of a house. When it comes to that, if we believe something like that's going on, a code officer goes and knocks on the door, they can ask, hey, how many families you have living in there, but they don't have to answer. They can close the door on the code officer's face and walk away. So they're sort of limited on what they can do. If we know that there's some sort of other health and safety issue, we may be able to get access at that point. But as far as just going up and inquiring to somebody how many families or how many people live in this house, it's a stretch where possibly you're violating on people's rights. So with that being said, we have our code compliance. Most of them are here tonight. We do have one code officer, code compliance manager, 8 code compliance officers, 2 currently, or correction, there's 4 currently in training, 1 animal control officer, 2 administrative staff, 1 of which is full-time and 1 is a temp employee. The code officers, they're assigned to 1 of 7 enforcement zones when fully staffed, and 1 code officer is assigned to solid waste violations across all zones. Because of the shortage, they've split the details where each code officer is actually covering the solid waste issues in each of their zones, also dealing with their regular code compliance. Last year, code compliance issued 2,536 violations, and that was in the year 2022. So with that being said, the only other thing I can say is if we have code compliance issues, I know that there's been a lot of chatter on social media and things like that. The only thing we ask is just reach out to us. Reach out to the police department, reach out to code compliance, and give us the information so we can properly deal with it. And again, yes, we do have to have name, address, contact number as part of the process, and that is required by Florida state statute. We can also utilize it on the new Fix-It app, if everybody's aware of that. It's the City of Homestead Fix-It app, and they can also, raise those complaints there. But again, you have to be registered with that so we can get the information. The only time that we will take an anonymous complaint, again, is if it's a life safety issue. So if it's some sort of code of compliance violation that is a life safety issue, we can take anonymous complaint on that. So with that, that is the code compliance presentation, and I'm ready for any questions from council.
Thank you, Captain. Appreciate that. When I asked the manager to coordinate this, it was shortly after the appointment of Ms. Collins. I guess she's the code compliance manager. I guess the director is a misnomer, because code compliance is not a department, it's a division of the police department. Is that an accurate
That is
trail?
correct, Mayor, yes.
So in effect, that means Captain DeJohn is the code enforcement director. Would that be?
Yes, with the police version of it, yes, or the supervisor of code enforcement.
So I was hopeful when we had a new compliance manager that she would bring to us some idea. And what I had asked for is some input as to where are the holes in our code? What tools, what legal tools can we give you to help better do your job? And clearly, multiple occupancy, RVs, living in the backyard, and commercial vehicles are by and far and away the number one concern, I believe, concerns in this community. So I guess, Captain, my question is, we spent a lot of time hearing about what we can't do. How can we? I mean, immediately solving the living in the backyard problem means that we enact a prohibition against any storage of any recreational vehicle in any backyard. I'm sure there are some municipalities within 20 miles of here that do that. I mean, short of that, if your officer has to see someone going in and out of that and has to see it without peering over the fence or flying a drone down the street or standing up in the back of their code enforcement truck, I mean, are we telling the public who thought they lived in a single-family neighborhood where now multiple families potentially are living in RVs in the backyard? Are we telling them that our hands are tied but for those very limited circumstances? Or we just enact a prohibition of storage of RVs in any residential area? I mean, I was looking for some input as to how we could help address it rather than hearing the 101 reasons why we can't. So that's kind of what I was looking for tonight, some help for us to give relief to folks who are seeing their neighborhoods going down the drain overnight across this city. So any input on that?
If I can, Captain. I know we've talked to the police department and code, and one of the things they definitely are looking into is increasing the fines right now. Right now, the fines for an illegal dumping are fairly minimal. It costs us more money probably to pick up the stuff and dump it for them, right? They get hit with a $500 fine, and we went to the county fill and we just got $1,500 in dumping fees. So that's something that we're looking to go ahead and increase the fines. One of the big major challenges we're having right now, and we met with some local residents, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks, or before the holidays, if I'm not mistaken, is this whole anonymous notification, right? Somebody, and it's had a very cooling effect on the residents that would come and say, listen, my neighbor has 2 RVs in the backyard. I don't know who has 2 RVs in the backyard. I understand 1, but 2, it seems excessive to me, but there's somebody living there, at which point opens the door for code to come and, knock on the door. Hey, we were getting this complaint, go take a look at it. And so it's had a very chilling effect But with that being said, I know for a fact, Code was driving down the street in the northwest part of town, if I'm not mistaken. It just happened, the person left the gate open, they see the mom and the child going in and out of the RV, and then they just sit down there to have lunch on a table or something like that. It's not that Code is not out there looking for these things, they are, but our hands are tied to a certain extent, right? By state statutes and city laws. But once again, one of the things that would help, I think, is definitely increasing the fines so it hurts so much that when you do it, you don't want to do it again. And with that, I'll turn it over to the council.
Let me ask you, in that regard, is our Fix-It Homestead app being utilized? How many folks have downloaded it? Has it helped code enforcement? Where are we with that?
I would have to pull our down the numbers. I don't have that in front of me right now. We have received a good number of complaints. I think we've received since the launch more than 50, less than 100. But that's a good thing because we weren't receiving those before. And what is also good is that through the app, you have to provide your personal information in your account. So we're automatically getting the information we need to ensure that these are not anonymous complaints and that they are actionable.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I drive all over the city, and I can say that most of the problem is rampant in the northwest and in the southwest part of the city. I know on the east side, they've got some better controls when it comes to HOA, but a lot of the really bad areas happen in the northwest. And what happens is residents call us. Residents will call me and they say, take a look at this. This is happening right now. And what we would do is pass that information on to city manager. City manager passes it on to Captain Dijon, and Dijon passes it on to code. But instead of pointing the finger, I took the time to go meet with code. And I sat there and I met each and every one of them and I asked them, what can we do to help the situation? So instead of us coming up with some policy that we think is going to work, let's go to the source and find out, what do you guys need? What do you need to help you? Because they are taking the grunt of the complaints. But it's not only their fault. There are multiple departments that all intertwine for us to run a city. So, things that happen in solid waste, all of a sudden it becomes a code problem, when it's not a code problem. After we have created that position with Crystal Oliver, I have heard great things about her going to that department, and things are starting to change there. So I want to commend you, Ms. Oliveira. You're doing an excellent job, and please keep up the great work. So, when I ask code, do you guys regularly meet, so that we can cross-reference between each department? And maybe that's underway. Maybe they're going to do that because they're both new directors, or they're both new to their position. But if I have an issue with, someone else's district, I want to go to that person and say, hey, what can we do to work together in between our districts? So I think open communication between departments, and not just those two departments, but all departments. Roundtable meetings just for all of us to say, hey, what's going on in your department, your department, your department? And when we all start to communicate, great ideas start to come out of those communications. Last month, they issued 174 violations. Now, out of 8 people that are in the field, they all spoke freely and they said, hey, listen, if you guys want us to speak and we're going to give you some ideas, why don't we consider the following? Business licensing and zoning, why don't we consider having those departments fund additional people so they can specifically target those violations instead of utilizing the 8 or the 7 that are in the field to do that? If we want to have, because we do have a solid waste person that is over in that department. However, we know that the problem is specifically hot with solid waste, so all of them are doing solid waste now. So we have to find ways to add additional personnel to that department and have whatever category that code compliance violation is in, have that department fund that additional person. These guys, they've got to do solid waste, nuisance, building regulations, signs and advertising, zoning, vegetation, local business taxes, health, sanitation, housing standards, streets. That's a lot of stuff for those 7 people to do. And there's 85,000 residents, there's 26,000 households. I mean, it's a lot. So we can't just point the finger at code and say they're not doing their job. I think better communication, better technology, cross-referencing between other departments will get us heading in the right direction. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman? Councilman Roth?
Sure, why not? Thank you. I kind of agree with the Vice Mayor, but I also think that when people drive through our city, they're going to go visit one of their neighbors in the neighborhood, and they see trash just lying on the side of the road. They don't know that that household, that business is being cited for code violations, and they're pending fines and assessments and all these things about them. So I was thinking about this meeting and what we were going to speak about today, and to me, it's coming up with solutions to help solve some of these problems. And it's going to be a manpower issue. We're going to need more manpower. We're going to need more equipment. And I'm thinking to myself, and you guys that are in code that work in the southwest section, probably the worst section is the area from Chrome Avenue to about 3rd Avenue, from Southwest 8th Street to Southwest 4th Street. And there's also the added element of personal responsibility. And when you drive through those areas, those apartments, and that one vacant lot that's on 5th Street and Chrome Terrace, we'll pick it up, and next week it's fully loaded again with stuff. We pick it up, and it's fully loaded again with stuff. So my thoughts, like with QRT, we have a QRT team, right? And I see 1 or 2 guys out there constantly along US 1, along Camel Drive, and streets picking up random trash, right? The leaflets and things that people drop out of their cars. But it's the big stuff that is the eyesore. That perfect example of 5th Street and Chrome Terrace. You drive through the northwest section, and you'll see it along the railroad tracks in 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue, back in that area. Why couldn't we have our regular pickups, right? We have that. We already have that scheduled. But why couldn't we have one team that has a bucket truck and a dump truck that immediately responds to these illegal dumping problems? Even in the villages where we pick up trash every month there ourselves. I'm driving through my neighborhood the other day, and randomly appeared 3 used tires on the side of the road. Now, I'm not going to get out of my car and pick them up. Who's going to pick them up? Nobody. They're going to sit there. But if we had a crew that, and that's an anonymous, I mean, anybody can call and say, hey, look, there's 3 tires sitting on the corner of whatever their street was, Hummingbird and J Court. You're not telling on anybody. You're not really tattletaling. You're just simply saying, look, there's trash to be picked up. That's the same thing as if somebody drops a bed on Palm Drive, which I've called for before. So somebody dropped the bed there, right? Well, who's going to pick it up? It's nobody's front yard. It's on the right of way, right? We got to pick it up. So if we had a crew that was specific to just picking up that, what would that cost us? With the truck, with the manpower, and all that?
That is something that we're actually contemplating. So remember, we've made a lot of changes in solid waste since the holidays, right? We've made it a department. We have a new director. Right now, it's boots on the ground. She's looking at the current operation. We're tweaking it. We're implementing new technologies. But definitely, we have talked about having a bulky pickup truck just focused to, hey, if code calls, there's an issue, hey, I got a pile with illegal dumping here, at least so we could get to it earlier, right? So now, right now, we're actually in the second phase of the solid waste study, which is the bulky pickup as well as the commercial, to tell us how we could be more efficient in doing what we're doing. Either we got few trucks and few staff, or we have too many. So we're just waiting on that one. So once again, we're always driven by the data here. So we're waiting for that report to see what we get back. But that's an excellent idea, Councilman Roth. We are thinking about it. We're just waiting to get the information that we need to do and just putting it out there. We're making a lot of changes in solid waste. And in March, I'm going to be bringing a rate increase for solid waste. It's been 15 years. There has been no increase in the solid waste fees for the community. The city has absorbed it. And so to implement all these things to ensure that the garbage is being picked up on time, every time, there's a lot of changes we have to do, and we're currently in the process of doing that. I don't know if any of you, but since the beginning of this year, knock on wood, I've noticed things have gotten substantially better. But what happened?
Where?
Well, I want
Where?
to say around the city, well, in the northwest and
In terms of the reliability of our crews and equipment, yes.
Right.
In terms of illegal and improper
Oh, no.
dumping,
Well, yeah.
absolutely not.
And Mayor, you're absolutely correct. In terms of the illegal dumping, we're talking a different animal here, okay? And one of the major challenges that we have here, and I'm sorry to say, is that the city does bulky pickup every 2 weeks, okay? It just makes it way too easy for somebody just to pull up to the curb. There's a pile there already, and I'm just gonna dump my, I cut the grass for 20 houses. The back of my truck is filled up, and the landscaper guy, hey, I drive to Homestead and I dump it there. I just saved myself $500. And so part of the challenge that we have here is that we do it every 2 weeks. In the end, we're not a small town anymore. This isn't the little town of Homestead, the little village of Homestead. 84,000 residents, if not closer to 90,000. We're a big city, right? And so a lot of demands comes with being a big city. And when I started here 33 years ago, all right, I remember the strawberry fields there east of the turnpike. I used to go hunting and fishing there with my buddies. All of that, we got tens of thousands of people there. So we're going through growing pains now. We didn't get here overnight. Yesterday, everything was perfect, and tonight, everything is terrible. It took decades to get here. Once again, decades. Once again, no raise in solid waste fees in 15 years. So we have the challenge. We have to modernize the solid waste department. We have to modernize the area where these people actually work. And any one of you want to come one day before we implement our changes, I'd like you to walk through that kitchen area and the bathrooms and the office area. I want you to see it, okay? Because it's a building that 15 years ago might have been done and hasn't been touched since. And so we have a major challenge here. We got to take care of our employees. We got to give them the tools for success, and that's what we're doing right now. And like I said, I see things getting better. I notice it because I'm talking to them every day. But you're right, Mayor. Illegal dumping is a major concern here, and it's just too easy for somebody to come into town and just dump all their illegal clippings at the nearest pile, which there's one every 2 or 3 houses. That's one part of the challenges we have.
Councilman Roth, were you?
Yeah, I still got a few things. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Just for the administration portion of this, Captain, when you divide the number of cases you said were established in 2022 and I divided it by 6 days instead of 5 working days, by 6 days, it comes out to a little over 8 violations per day, which would be maybe 1 violation per code officer. You mentioned that once they issue or begin to build their case, they have physically seen the violation. They go back to their office and they start to pull this information and begin to build the case, on average, and I'm just trying to figure this out in my mind, on average, what's the time frame? I know it's going to vary because if there's multiple corporations, but the simple one, the guy who doesn't cut his grass, what's that take as far as time-wise for that officer?
It could take a day or two on the very simplest of case, just to make sure they have everything done, and then they issue the citation usually via mail and certified mail. So would that be correct, LaVonka? Yeah. But that's on the simplest of cases, which again involves research. It could take a lot longer. It could take weeks. It could even take months just to deal with one particular issue. Like I said, we had one property that, took 5 years to clean up. So it's a very daunting task.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, so, I mean, as you're evaluating the systems that you have in place now, technology and those things, I hope that you look at the value of having those 7 or 8 officers out in the street compiling these things, but then they pass that on to somebody who's going to sit in the office and do the investigative portion of it. So they're out on the streets looking for more violations or responding to more calls. I think we have the technology to do that, because one of the things that I hear the most is that, and it's no offense to any of the code officers here, because I see them, I know they're out there doing everything they can, but if they're that busy, one of the complaints I get is they don't get a call back from somebody who's gotten a citation in the mail. So they may call that office and they may get a call back the next day. And in today's world, we like instant gratification. If somebody sends me a letter that says I've violated something, I would like to speak to somebody as soon as possible, so that I'm not losing sleep at night because I've got a violation and I want to cure it. Now, I'm probably not the norm, right? Because, as you said, a lot of people ignore you, and it's up to them to correct the violation, which leads me into my next thought, especially with illegal dumping. Once we are made aware of the illegal dumping, the officer goes out and cites the property. What stops us from that moment in time to pick it up? Why do we have to give them a grace period? Or do we have it in the code where we can change it, that we can cite them, give them 72 hours. If it's not cured, we cured, and we automatically fine them for something? Because if we have to wait 30 days or 60 days, and then they get scheduled for a hearing, and if they go before a magistrate, as I started off my conversation was, when people are driving through the neighborhoods to go visit their friends and family, they don't know. They just see trash. And it's our job to get that stuff picked up as quickly as we can, because we all want an aesthetically pleasing community to live in. And as the Vice Mayor said, the East Side is a little bit more controlled because they have internal controls. But I spent a lot of time in the Northwest section. I was in the Northwest section again today. I was in the Southwest section yesterday, just for what I do for a living, and I see it. I did get a complaint about 15th Street in between 2nd Avenue and 3rd Avenue about some buildings that haven't been painted and things like that. Those are things we can address, but the aesthetics is what's important to me. Picking up the trash is important to me. The multiple families living in single-family residences, whether it be inside the unit or in recreational vehicles, is another one. And another thought I have is when I drive through the Northwest section, especially in the evening as people are coming home, when you see a single-family house that's got 8 cars parked in front of it, what can we do about that? Most of them are parking, which I would think would be an easement or a right-of-way to the city. Can't they be cited for parking on those areas?
Mayor, I think that's more of a legal question. I mean, I don't think.
So, as far as the parking, we can enforce if there are no parking signs. So I know we had an issue like this in the Northwest where we had people parking on on a median that was actually in the middle of the road, not the parkway in front of the house. So there we had to install no parking signs so that the PD could actually enforce that. If there's not signage, we get a little limited in what we can enforce. But then to address your question regarding the illegal dumping and picking up, I know that historically, it was usually Wednesdays were the light day, so that was when we could run a special pickup, do those special pickups of the illegal dumping. Since solid waste has been so short-staffed, that has not been the case recently, but definitely as we move forward with fixing the operation, getting everything more modernized, that's something that we do want to go back to.
Right, and just another thing that, I mean, I know when you're doing the investigations to multiple piles in front of apartment complexes in code, and I've seen them, I've pulled up and they're, what are you doing? I'm looking to see if I can identify the owner of this property so that I can cite them individually. And to me, it's a waste of time, especially in an apartment complex, because you can cite Unit A for illegal dumping. They're never going to pay you. Just pick the stuff up. There has to be a way we can effectively and be more efficient in just getting rid of this unsightly stuff. Now, I don't know if I agree with the manager in reference to our biggest problem is we pick it up every 2 weeks. Maybe that's so, maybe it's not. But if we stop picking up every 2 weeks, we're still going to have our trucks out there every 2 weeks picking up all the stuff. Yeah, I mean, so when you look at what the county does, responsible homeowners know that they get 2 pickups a year. They know they can go online and register to get their stuff picked up, and they come pick it up eventually. But on the other side is when Miami-Dade County code enforcement drives through a neighborhood and they start citing people, whether it be illegal dumping or not, it seems to me there's more of an immediate response. And I'm not sure what the county does that we don't do that gets the attention of those violators that are dropping trash. And most of the time, it's the same problem we have. It's somebody illegally dumping. And they're dumping on a guy's vacant lot, or they're dumping on a right-of-way where somebody's house is attached to it, which this poor 90-year-old lady didn't put that stuff there, but she's getting cited because that's where it lands. So, I mean, the camera programs and everything, we'd have to have a camera on every single street in the Northwest and the Southwest to catch the violators. So I'm going to get off my pontificating horse right now but I see it all the time, and I'm thankful that when I call you guys at staff, that code responds, solid waste gets out there and picks up the stuff, but we have to figure out a way to, make people aware that it's not acceptable to drop trash in our city anymore. It's just not. And we can probably talk about this for 5 more years, and we're going to have the same problem. But as long as we're making an effort to cure it, whether it costs another $500,000 a year, get a truck out there, get a bucket truck out there, and get a crew that simply focuses on that part of it, the rest of it will go smoother. So I just think that this was a very healthy thing, and this is kind of what I thought the conversation was going to be, was we're going to try to solve some problems tonight, right? We're going to solve them. And there are great ideas, but I think it comes down to just a simple couple of things. Address and pick it up. Address and pick it up. Let code write that citation, we go pick it up, and let the courts and let you guys handle the administrative portions of that. But let's get the city looking more aesthetically clean, because the people that drive through here have no idea why that trash is sitting there. Thank you for now, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. And
If I could, real quick, just to answer your questions. With cars parking outside somebody's house, a lot of times they're parked right in the yard. There's nothing we can do about that being parked in a yard. It's private property. Same thing goes as to the trash. If we go out and we cite a particular location, it's on the right-of-way. Code does contact solid waste, but you can't blame solid waste. They've got their own challenges as well. We have challenges, all the departments have challenges, but they do that part of the process. Now, if it's some sort of dumping that is on private property, we can't simply just go on there and just start cleaning up the private property. We would be trespassing in a sense. So we just can't go over there and start cleaning that up. So one of the things that Mayor, you asked is what can we do? I think, number one, it's going to be about education. We're going to have to do some education, whether it's some social media campaigns, putting that information out there. I mean, just we can use your help. Use your help. Use your social media platform, not just taking in the complaints, because the complaints are valuable. But again, we need those complaints firsthand. But maybe put that information out there. Look, if you see something, say something. You see your neighbors putting out trash, dumping trash, or somebody's bringing their lawn service and dumping it in front of their house. Let us know. Talk about the different code violations, how it's against the rules. It's against the city ordinance to have multiple RVs in your backyard, to have people living in your backyard. And then there's other things that we plan on doing. We're going to do some enforcement operations in different zones, and we're working that out right now, but we hope to be making some very good progress here soon. Also, the other thing to keep in mind is that, we had 2,000 something other code violations last year, but for the most part, that was with 4 code officers training 4 other code officers. So you're downsized in the manpower because those code officers aren't on their own, for a good portion of this time. So that does slow things down as they're learning. That doesn't help out everybody else's quality of life issues, but we're getting there. We're working at it. So we are now at full staff with code. Could we use more? Yes, but we're not asking for that right now. We're just asking for everybody to help pitch in, make everybody aware, and we're going to do everything we can to address the issues.
Appreciate that. And Councilor North, I think we're in total agreement. We need to have clean streets. Doesn't matter, pending fines, pending violations, that's not an issue. When visitors and residents alike, none of them should have to ride down our streets and see what exists now.
Let me interrupt you just for a second, though. Just today, as I was driving down 11th Street from Chrome Avenue to US 1, I saw no less than 24 shopping carts.
Yeah.
And I did see Sedanos out there picking them up, but they're not all Sedanos.
No.
You got Walmart shopping carts. So it is a problem, and I hated to interrupt you, but you see it all the time, and Captain has a good point too. It's about education, but it's the same places over and over again that are doing the same thing. I mean, for the people that are leaving shopping carts on 11th Street, do we need to actually start a shuttle service for them? So, hey, don't leave the shopping cart here. We'll pick you up at the Walmart and take you to your place so you don't leave the shopping cart here. I mean, what is the true solution there? I mean, we can talk about this all the time, but I think some of it is personal responsibility. I mention that all the time. It's personal responsibility. I don't know that it's all education because you've got the same people doing the same thing over and over again. The areas that I was talking about between Chrome and 3rd Avenue and Lucy and 4th Street, I mean, can't we cite the property owners, not the tenants, but make those people responsible for their tenants that are dumping the garbage in the streets there? I mean, you drive by it, we pick it up, and the next day, there's more stuff there. It's a very frustrating process for everybody who has to deal with it every day, for us to get calls about it every day. And, here we are again. It's going to be an hour. We haven't even really scratched the surface yet on this topic. And the bottom line, and I'm sorry to keep talking, Mayor, but is we got to figure out what it's going to cost us to put another crew in place that handles just that. And, Jerry, you mentioned the fines going up. So as soon as you possibly can, for us up here, let us know what those fines are. That way we can make adjustments within whatever the laws allow us to do so that we can give them more power, hopefully, with bigger citations and bigger fines so that we can begin to help try to stamp out this problem. So, I'm sorry, Mayor. Thank you for that.
Appreciate that, but my concern is, we've got a balance between keeping our streets clean and incentivizing bad behavior. Because I think we all recognize there are piles that if we pick them up today, they will be back there the same time tomorrow. So what that does is if we add crews, we add equipment, we're asking our conscientious, law-abiding customers to subsidize bad behavior. And I have a problem with that, and let me expand on that really quickly. I know the Vice Mayor, I think, wants to weigh in on the frequency of the pickups. We've had that, and we'll continue to have those conversations. As the manager knows, I go all over the place, and I send him reports of problems, but in the area bounded by Northeast 11th Street, Campbell Drive, Chrome Avenue, and Old Dixie Highway is a real hotbed of habitual, illegal, and improper dumping, characterized largely by apartment complexes and duplexes. So I've compiled a list of, I think it's maybe up to around 35 addresses that I've identified as the habitual offenders. And by far, the ownership of those apartment complexes that trash our community are nowhere near here. They're in Pinecrest. They're in the Falls. They're in Brooklyn, New York. They're in Anaheim, California. They're in Boston, Massachusetts. They are absentee owners who, until we hold them financially accountable for the action of their tenants, nothing is going to change. We can talk till we're blue in the face to those tenants, but only when their landlord says to them, hey guys, I'm tired of getting your fines, nothing's going to change. So, and I know this is code enforcement, it shows that it's inextricably intertwined with solid waste. So let me ask Mr. Pearl, man, is there a legal presumption that improperly timed or illegally placed waste on a right-of-way in front of a piece of property, is there a presumption that it came from that property?
I'm sorry, this is Jose from our office, and he handles all the code enforcement matters.
I want to know how Coral Gables and Pinecrest keep their streets so clean, and we can't seem to convince our folks to do that.
Mayor, the solid waste fees for Coral Gables, I believe, is $1,000 a year.
I don't know that that would change anything here. It may allow us to, again, charge our residents to pick up on behalf of absentee landlords, but I don't think that's going to change anything in terms of behavior. Mr. Arango, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Jose Arango for the record. There is not a presumption from a legal standpoint, but from the way that the case is constructed, there can be created a presumption. So it's really based on, so code enforcement and the city has the discretion to determine who the violator is. Typically, I heard it stated earlier, typically the violator is alleged to be the homeowner. It just goes hand in hand because the ultimate remedy is a lien and how you would want to enforce that lien, which is the order rendered by the special magistrate. So it becomes almost like an in rem action. But that's not to say that it has to be that way. It could be if code enforcement, which I do believe they do, inspects and somehow finds evidence that it's someone other than the homeowner, then sure, they can go after them as well.
Okay, because what I'm getting at, and the manager knows which complex I'm talking about, there's a habitual offender on Northeast 11th Street where there's drywall, plumbing fixtures, car bumpers, anything and everything out there in that trash pile that clearly did not come from within that unit. Maybe some of those tenants brought that home, but that particular owner has been, I won't say reluctant, has refused to help us change that situation. And here's my thought process. If they start getting $1,000 or $1,500 bill a week for those repeat violations, sooner or later, our lien becomes worth foreclosing or selling to someone else to foreclose, because money is the only thing that's going to change, I believe, is the only thing that's going to change behavior. And unfortunately, the majority of it is by renters with landlords who can't see it from their house. It's just a source of cash flow. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like staff to give us a report on how many other municipalities provide bulk trash pickup twice a month. Is that what we do it twice a month?
Every 2 weeks right now, yes.
Because I think we have told the world and we have spoiled the residents of Homestead. We're telling the world, hey, you guys have trash? Come throw it in Homestead because they pick it up for you anyways. So I agree with what you're saying, Manager, that we have to do something with the scheduling of the trash pickup, because if we want a clean city, we cannot continue to provide that service at the rate that we're providing the service. The frequency needs to stop. People don't even abide by the calendar. They say, you know what, I feel like clipping trees today. So they go clip trees and they put them outside and they say, hey, they're going to pick them up at some point. So I think that has to change. And the minute code or someone sees from solid waste that trash is out there, someone go to that door and say, hey, you've got 72 hours to get rid of this trash or you're going to get cited. And that's the fine that needs to be a big, hefty fine. Once you start hitting people in their pocket because they're doing something wrong, and we've given them an opportunity, courtesy, to go out there and say, hey, change this, and they don't do it within 72 hours, that's when you hit them with the fine, and we're doing everything that we should do to enforce trying to have a good city, a good, clean city. Can we use, I know there's lots of technology that we can use for trying to find these illegal dumping issues. And we have cameras out there already. I don't know how they're performing. I know that we're maybe thinking about getting some other ones, but there are some very inexpensive cameras out there that we could load the city up with so that we can solve this problem. We've got to be laser focused on this particular problem right now and throw a lot of resources and energy, because I think that's the only way that we're ever going to get this problem under control. So why don't we look at some inexpensive cameras that we can provide throughout multiple areas of the city and just inundate the city with cameras. That's going to give us a lot of data that we can use for a lot of other stuff in the future too. So that's part of what I'd like to see happen.
Absolutely, that's part of it. But that means somebody has to check the live feed on the camera to see if the trash pile that's there at 8 o'clock that morning wasn't there at dark, and then replay the tape, or physically go out and drive by those sites. But yeah, you're right. It's got to be all hands on deck.
Yeah, and Vice Mayor, that's an excellent point. We do have some cameras out there. They're older technology, but we had them. So we went ahead and deployed them in key areas, and it's actually gotten photographs of people illegally dumping, but then it didn't catch the license plate, or it was a little too dark. You know, I got great pictures of people if you want to see who are illegally dumping, okay? You can see their face, you might know them, I don't know. But with that being said, we've actually gone out on the street to go ahead and upgrade the cameras. We're running a new pilot program. We've already put in the order for this new camera, which will catch you coming and going. Doesn't matter from which direction you come, the camera's gonna pick you up. And if I'm not mistaken, it has a range of up to 200 yards. And you'll be able to go ahead and zoom in to that particular pile and see who drove in, drove out, with night vision technology. And so we want to try the camera out first. This is the camera system that's being used by Oakland, California for their illegal dumping. They had a case study, so we went ahead and took a look at that. And so we're fairly positive it's going to work out, but we wanted to try one camera first before we go ahead and order 20 or 30 more. But I think one of the key things is we know where the key areas of the illegal dumping are. Once we can start setting up these cameras in the key area and start, making arrests, confiscation of vehicles. And in fact, I think it was before the end of the year, there was an arrest actually of a gentleman illegal dumping in the northwest of town. Unfortunately, he had borrowed the vehicle from his friend, so we didn't confiscate the vehicle, but that's where we're going to be, well, that's where I want to go. If you're running a business and you're illegally dumping here and costing the city tens of thousands of dollars by constantly dumping here, I mean, there should be a price to pay. And once you arrest several people and confiscate their vehicles, the word is going to get out there, and I think that's going to deter the illegal dumping that's going on.
And just to piggyback on what Jerry was saying, we were talking about these enhanced remedies, and once you reach the level of felony, which is really if you have dumped more than X number of cubic yards of material of refuse, there's, in addition to that, there's also monetary fines that can be triple the cost to the city. So if we went and cleaned it up and we pay tipping fees, and Jerry was talking about earlier how there are instances where it costs us more just to remove the stuff than any fine is worth. Once we hit that threshold, if we really want to get aggressive with it, we can file a civil action seeking those damages as well as the cost of that civil action. So there are remedies once the technology is in place to identify the people who are doing it, that we've had extensive discussions on, how we would move forward to really crack down.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. Back to you, Councilman Roth.
Thank you. I have another thought and a question. Many years ago, I got a letter from the city on a property in Sky Vista that asked us to paint the exterior of the house. Do we still do that? Because when you drive through the southwest and the northwest section, you see houses that need facelifts. And it would be very frustrating for me if I took care of my property, kept my yard manicured, kept my house painted and nice and neat, and the guy next door to me didn't. So is there a code that allows us to, and especially when you go through and you see fascia that's rotting and falling off somebody's house, and they're not maintaining that. I mean, the people that live on the east side, we don't have to deal with that because we have other rules and things, and we've got enforcement and people that go around and check on us. But the people that live in the northwest sections and the southwest sections, they don't have that. But I got a call about a property on 15th Street that they restuccoed the exterior of the home, but they never painted it, so it's gray. And Mary, you may know which house I'm talking about. I mean, do we have the ability to do that? Send them letters for that particular property? I mean, and I'm sure we'd hit a lot of absentee owners with that too. So, because aesthetics is very important to a lot of people, and as these homes and these neighborhoods are getting older and older, we need to make sure that they're being maintained as well. So, that was just another thought I had for this conversation.
Thank you.
Captain, do we cite for that? Like if you don't paint your house? I mean, obviously, if you don't cut your grass, I think we cite you, but I don't know about painting the house proper.
To my knowledge, and I'll look into it, but there's not a specific code that says they have to maintain it. Obviously, we have code for, I guess, the painting of it and what colors they use. But
Well,
there's
that's
nothing.
for commercial.
Right, that's for commercial. Because I see these things as well. I live here in the city and I see these things as well. And I see a business that has faded signs and things like that. And those are things I would like our code to be able to get to a point to address. Because that's some of the things that the people in the city see as they're visiting the city. They see a business who's got overgrown bushes or faded signs and things like that. Right. So that has to be addressed. But, as you said, we got to be laser focused on addressing the illegal dumping. There's a tons of things that we have to be laser focused on. To bring your point about the inexpensive cameras, you're right, there are inexpensive cameras, but if you recall, about a year ago, I did a presentation to y'all regarding a camera system that we're going to try to employ in the parks, as well as bringing it towards code enforcement to have some cameras that we can move around. Well, I got that feeling that I need to look into this a little bit more, and I wasn't happy with the camera system itself. Cheap and expensive, but sometimes that's what you get for you pay for. So I don't think at the end of the day, I'd rather the city not spend the money on it and end up looking around and getting something better like what they've found now that we're hoping will be is the cameras that we're going to go with.
And with respect to the paint, that was my point. Where is our code lacking in terms of your ability to identify an aesthetic issue, but there's no no regulation that allows you to address that.
In talking to the code officers, I mean, they're simply whatever you code that you come up with, and we can sit down and we can have a deeper conversation about what has to be done, but I would suggest that we sort of model it after what maybe the county does. Take a look at what the county does. Don't look at what Coral Gables does, because that's, apples and oranges. As much as I'd like to, want our city to be like Coral Gables, but take a look at what the county does as a whole, because I believe the rest of the cities probably model a lot of stuff after the county. So
It seems pretty lax.
yeah, it may seem pretty lax, but there's they only pick up twice a year. They don't have near the illegal dumping issues that we have. So to adopt something maybe like that, and again, that's up to y'all as far as what you want to do with the code. We'll be more than happy to sit down with you at some point and have a deeper discussion about what our people feel is lacking or what they can or can't do. And the point, just to bring up earlier, yes, our presentation was about what we can't do, because we can't address what we can do without first recognizing, everything that we cannot do. If we want to make changes, just understand from the beginning, these are the items that we can't do ourselves.
Appreciate that. Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. And I think that's a great segue, which you just referenced, how I want to begin. We have residents here, I'm sure, very frustrated. This is a quality of life issue that they live every single day. And when they come, they really don't want to hear what you can't do. So I think this presentation was a great part A. So what I think part B needs to be is a multi-tiered approach on how we're going to address. What is our plan of action? And tonight what I heard is community pride, education, absent landlords placing liens and fining them. That can ultimately lead to us foreclosing on their properties. I heard the frequency of pickups. I heard that we've been researching a camera system from Oakland, California. All of these are great ideas that we're throwing out there, but we need a plan of action in order to address this. And I know we say in Coral Gables and Pinecrest and these areas, and it's apples and oranges, but there is a standard that we need to be aspiring to. I don't think we should lowball it because we're not Coral Gables and we don't have their ad valorem taxes. There is a standard, there is a bar, and we need to set that bar. So if we have to look at what Coral Gables is doing, let's look at it. Let's look at it. What Pinecrest is doing, let's look at it. I'm not sure why we haven't looked at it already, considering this has been a concern for some time, but we need to address it. So I have a couple of questions that have not been asked tonight, because I don't just want to reiterate what I've heard. How long have we been at these staffing levels relative to our code compliance officers?
I want to say that in 2021 is when we added 2 additional code officers, if I'm not mistaken, when Kate was here. This last budget?
My recollection is we funded 2 additional officers October 1, 22.
Okay.
So prior to that, we only had.
They've had death and retirements and promotions.
Right, I understand that. But my point is, what we're trying to do, this isn't sustainable. It's really not. So we have 1 officer, for one of 7 enforcement zones. So where are those zones? The 7 enforcement zones.
All right, Mike.
Good evening. We have 1 code officer for the Southwest section. She covers from Lucy Street, Southwest 8th Street to Northwest 4th Street, from Chrome to city limits west. We have 1 code officer that services Northwest 4th Street north, city limits, from Chrome west the city limits. Have a code officer from Chrome. Northeast, she covers from Lucy Street. From Lucy Street to 12th Avenue. No, Lucy Street, yeah, the 12th Avenue, north city limits. Back to Chrome. Then I have a code officer that goes from northeast 12th to northeast 14th Avenue. No, Brian, you go to?
I'm sorry, it's northeast 12th Avenue, all the way to northeast 28th Avenue, city limits north, all the way to south.
Then I have a code officer that goes from his area to northeast 127th.
Let me do this. What you can do, because I know you weren't prepared for this question tonight, so I don't want to put that kind of pressure on you. So if you can provide me, I would like to see a map, color-coded. Enforcement zone 1, 2, 3, so that I can look at it visually to get a better perspective of that. And my next question is, like, talk to me about the day in the life of a code enforcement officer. What does their day look like currently? So they clock in at what time?
I have a code of, well, who starts? Nobody has a 7. So we have.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
They start at 8.
Mm-hmm.
From 8 all the way up until the last code officer clocks out at 5.
So what does their day look like?
They come in and everybody attends roll call. After roll call, they go in and check their emails, return phone calls. If they're not dispatched any calls, they might go out and do an inspections or continue their work from the day prior. Now, if we get dispatched to a call, that takes priority to what you're doing, so you might have to stop. So back to answer, I forgot who asked that question. How long does it take to complete a case? Some days it might take 2 days because you might start the case and get dispatched into your zone to go and do like a minimum housing. So that takes priority over what you're doing. You go out and at least do the investigation and come back. So it depends.
So let me ask you this. Are there benchmarks or targets that have to be met by our code enforcement officers?
Once we're fully staffed.
What does fully staffed looks like?
Right now it would be at least, what? It's 8. Oh, no, we are fully staffed. We're fully staffed as recently. So once everybody's cut loose.
Wait, stop there. So we're fully staffed.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, how is that determined? How is that number determined? What is it determined by? Is there a certain metric that according to the size of population of our city, what determines fully staffed? That's not a question for you.
Like we were saying in the past, we had staffing issues, right? And so I reached out to Carlos. We did not add 2 code enforcement officers this year. We added, I believe, 3 public service aides. So that where the confusion might come in. But obviously, we're seeing the demands on code, right? And I believe when Kate was here in 2001, I think is when we added the 2 additional code enforcement officers. Now, needless to say, this is a challenge with all the departments in the city, right? And you have an excellent question, Councilwoman. Technically speaking, we should see our population and see what best business practices are and determine how many code enforcement officers we have.
That's where I'm going.
Right, and like I said, that's an excellent question, and that's somewhere we definitely eventually want to get to, right? but it's all dependent on funding. You know, there's IT needs people, procurement needs people, code needs people.
Right, and we always hear that, but we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize. So don't let that be the hang up, that all these departments need people. We know that.
No,
But we
quite-
have to prioritize, because this is an issue. This is an issue.
And you're absolutely correct. And I think the vice mayor touched on it earlier, like having development services fund a code officer, which could definitely be done. But once again, if we kind of turn the page and look at the other side of this, we have not raised our licensing fees. I want to say that's 20-plus years, right? So there's a cost to funding a new code officer. And one of the internal discussions I've had with Zach and Vivian, now that we're revamping solid waste right now funds one code officer, right? To actually go ahead and fund additional code officers, especially for the illegal dumping.
CRA
So that-
funds one, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. So where we can, we've been going around to get funding to get these additional code officers, but you're absolutely correct. We need to look at our current population, the current demands, and let that drive the number of code officers we have. Now, somebody mentioned Miami-Dade County a few minutes ago. They are reactive, they are not proactive. My understanding, and Lavanka, correct me if I'm wrong, they will not cite someone unless they get a complaint. So they'll drive by your house, you got the boat parked in the driveway, they will not cite you. They'll just drive by, and so they're having challenges as well. So they are reactive, not proactive. We are proactive. We don't
And I
wait for a
think we-
complaint, yes.
And I think we can be a bit more proactive if we look at what other municipalities are doing. I would like to see, okay, in Coral Gables, what is their population size? What is the size of their city? How many code compliance officers they have? Pinecrest, how many do they have? Palmetto Bay, how many do they have? And let's look at it like that and determine, you know, where we can make shifts. Sometimes it's going to take going outside of our city to find that recipe for success. Lavanka probably can go to Coral Gables and meet with their code compliance department. If I see a school is killing it with their data, oh, I'm going to meet with that principal. What are you doing? What shifts can I make in my school? So I think we have to be out of the box with this in order to tackle this, because it's going to be very complex. So I'll rest there, but before I do, our code compliance officers that are here, can you just please stand, that are here? I know you've heard a lot, and we don't want you to feel discouraged. We value you and the work that you do, and our job is to put tools in place, as you said, to be able to support you and the work that you do. You're honorable, and we recognize and we value that. We're here to come up with solutions. So thank you so much for being here and braving these conversations, but we're going to do all that we can to support you. So I don't want you to think that you are undervalued or underappreciated, because you are. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, and I wanted to say some words to our officers as well. This session was not meant to complain or criticize. This was to try to help us figure out how we can help you do your jobs better and more efficiently. Not that you're not doing the job you were hired to do. How can we give you more and better tools to do that? And certainly, you know, your superiors certainly have your back. I really don't understand why it takes 6 members of the command staff to be here tonight for a simple code enforcement presentation, because I don't see anything else on the agenda that would merit it. So certainly, you have their full support and you have our full support. But the public is clamoring for some solutions. And Mr. Manager, I don't know what everyone else's feeling is, but if I could be proactive and say, start looking for a way to fund at least 2 new code enforcement officers as of October 1. And if we set that commitment, maybe we can start the hiring process and training process now, so that that's not started October 1. Those new folks are ready to hit the streets on their own on October 1st. However you need to do that.
I'll get them before October 1st.
Even so. And that's coming out of Matt's budget, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes,
Can I-
Councilman Roth?
Yeah. And as we add additional code enforcement officers, I think I heard her say that we only have them working till 5 o'clock at night. Most of the violations for illegal parking, the semi-trucks, is happening way after 5 o'clock at night. So we may want to consider bringing in somebody till 9 p.m. and working a different shift so that we can catch some of those illegal truck violations that were happening.
And before daylight, when folks are coming and going out of those RVs, too.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask them to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to come in, but that's on them to do that. But the nighttime one, I think, would be very helpful for that as well, because the illegal landscape trucks come in and start parking in the northwest section and the southwest section at that time. You might even catch them dumping their load from that day at that time. So just consider bringing them in longer or after 5 p.m. for at least one shift where at least the trouble areas are, especially the northwest and the southwest part of the city. I think that's all I got for this for now. So
Thank
I'm
you.
sure
If
we're
there's
gonna talk
nothing
more.
further from council, I want to open it up to public comment. Come on down, give us your name and address for the record, and we do have a 3-minute timer. Good evening. Thanks for hanging in there with us.
John Soderholm, 466 Northwest 17th Court, Homestead. One, thank you. Last year's schedule, over 20 times, the garbage was not picked up on time. The staff is extremely friendly and it makes a good effort, but the bottom line is and I wasn't even here 3 months last year, so 20 times they weren't on schedule. We don't have a schedule for this year, so we can talk all we want about violations and code enforcement, but they can't enforce it because we don't have a schedule. There's been a 40% increase in garbage collection, I believe, from the years past. Why? Well, an increase in population, but also the rentals. The amount people are calling for extra cans because they need the cans for their rentals out back. Finally, I was asked as a resident, can I do something? And I was instructed and given, where is she? There she is, I have it, okay. My point being is that as a resident, what can I do to fix and solve the problem? Well, I look at the house across the street, I go downtown, I walk into this office down here, and they print me this little piece of paper that says that these are the permits that were pulled on the house. As a result, if I see things here that weren't permitted, then I can turn around and walk to her and give her this violation notice without having to have any name, address, or phone number, can I? In other words, without filing a complaint, can I give you this piece of paper and still be anonymous? Do you understand my point? In other words, the big thing is now, what we're fighting now is the anonymity of a complaint, which is myself. So if I've got an address, I've got another address for you to look up, because I think you can see the violation from the street that the permit wasn't pulled, and can it be done? In other words, I guess what I'm asking is, how can I help now? Not next year, not next week, not next month, not 5 years from now when we know we have to solve and change the entire solid waste program. It all has to change. You know that. And I don't want to have to keep paying for illegal dumping in my tax dollars. So we all agree on that. So how do we solve it? Well, I'm just telling you, this is the information I was given, at least how to try to go about doing it. And now I'm getting some feedback that maybe that's not the case. So it's frustrating for us to be able to see something, identify something, know something's going wrong, and yet their hands are tied. Respectfully, their hands are tied because maybe you guys haven't enforced enough of the codes, the code of violations, the code enforcements, whatever's necessary to allow these people to do their job, because I know they want to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Charlie. You know the
Mayor,
drill.
Council, Charles Crumpler. I'm glad you guys are having this discussion tonight, but you're kind of, Ms. Faircloth, to let you know what you asked about comparing Coral Gables, Pinecrest, something similar to that. If you want a department to actually, or a city to actually compare it to this city, it would be North Miami. Not North Miami Beach, North Miami. We're generally right along the same crime statistics. Geographical makeup's a little bit different. Demographics, people that live there, North Miami Police Department, or North Miami, City of North Miami. You guys, I hear you talking a lot about, you know, the grass, this, that, and the other, but the number one problem, obviously, is illegal dumping. Northeast 11th Street between 2 and 3 Avenue, I go down that way a lot. That is probably the worst site in the whole city, and it can be fixed in 24 hours. Done. Over. How? You go over there, you clean it up one time, and you sit on that thing and wait. And the first commercial dumper that hits it, you put him in jail. If a resident comes out of the apartment complex and dumps a bunch of baby diapers on the side, you politely go up to them and say, that's not acceptable in our city. You don't have to kill them. It's not acceptable in our city. It's finished at that point. The construction workers, I eat lunch with them every day. They're not the ones doing it, but I eat lunch with them every day. Word will get around in the construction community, in the yard, landscape community, everywhere else. You don't drive into Homestead and do this. There was a point in our police department, you wouldn't dare bring a stolen car into Homestead because you're going to get caught. Our police department is first class. It's number one. I love them. And I also love our sanitation department. But our sanitation department has been, it's not what everybody brags about anymore. But again, with what they need is, oh, one of your other questions was something to the effect of how many people have you increased? In 1997, 98, I was a sergeant in community policing and also helped out in code enforcement. You had 4 officers. You guys just hired. 30 plus years, almost 30 years. Money. Get somebody out there that really wants to see this city get cleaned up. And you know what I'm talking about. Simple as that. You got the guys out here that are able to do it. There's smart people out here. They can get it done. They're going to need manpower and money.
Yes. Councilwoman.
Was there any other public comment before I go?
Good evening, Brandy Ramirez, 2231 Southeast First Street. I just want to thank Mayor and Council for doing this tonight, working together and giving direction to staff. Like they said, code enforcement is capable of doing it, but they need your support. Also, I just want to thank you also for having your community meetings that you're having your town hall. You got a lot of good feedback from the community that are ready to support the police department and give some information, whether it's anonymous or straightforward. So I like seeing that you guys are doing that, and I want to just commend you guys for that. Patricia Faircloth had a lot of good points, and so did Mr. Larry Roth and all of you, so I look forward to you guys making that happen. And thank you, City Manager, for saying he's going to get it done before the 1st of October. And
Thank you.
I'm personally happy to see the command staff from the different departments, because our community needs to see that more and see them working together with code enforcement and all the people here in attendance. So thank you for that. Have a good evening.
Mr. Kraft, let's get him a microphone, please.
Thank you. I will say I'm extremely happy that it turned out the way it did with the presentations today. We had a nice presentation where the matter came forward. It's important that they have the support of the council, the full support of the council. It's important that they have the support of the city. They have. Command staff is here, showing their support and effort. And I think when we add more people over there to not solid waste, to code enforcement, and we perhaps in the future we'll try to make the code a little more clear, a little more simplified, because then it will take less time for them to do the paperwork. And when we add more technology like the cameras and other things that could be added to it, for instance, I know from hunting there's something called game cameras. You can watch them from your phone, from your laptop, from wherever you are in the world. They cost a little more, but the good ones are around $1,000. And they are solar panel. They are with a solar panel, so they don't need to be hooked up with power supply and all that stuff. And with the improvements that Jerry had added over to solid waste, we now have a lady who's capable of doing what she's supposed to do, lead the troops. And that's what she's going to do over there. And the combination that we talked about, teamwork across the lines between the different departments, is extremely important. But let them do that without interference from, what can you say, from the elected officials. Because some elected officials, they have a pet piece here and a pet piece there, and they go there and say, hey, can you please look at this one a little differently, because this is my friend or this is a contributor to my campaign. That doesn't fly anymore. Now everybody is equal to the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Is there any further public comment? Anything further? Councilwoman Avila, I think you wanted to weigh in again?
Thank you. And it's an honor to go last because it gives me the opportunity to, take everything in and that's being said. And I feel like I'm the young one of the group, and so there's a lot to learn. Living on the east side and in a CDD HOA community, we have really aggressive enforcement of these kinds of things. And so, I feel like I'm channeling Councilman Fletcher here. We've got to do better. Our code is broken in this aspect. If we can't direct charge these offenders, we have to make a way for it to be able to get done. We have to direct charge those who are committing these crimes. We have to catch them in the act. That takes staff. We have to have an action plan, as Councilwoman Faircloth said, that is strategic, studied, and aggressive. And I know, City Manager, you have done a great job with making this a priority in your departments and in your planning, and we've already started to see those effects, and you have our support, and we want you to let the horses loose and make sure that this gets done. Let's consider, I need more information to make an opinion on it, but let's consider a bulk on demand service where we can reduce our overhead costs of doing bulk every 2 weeks and try to have more of a on-demand call, schedule it, let's get it done type of pickup. Let's activate a bulk mobile. I don't know, call it something else if you want, but let's get the trash picked up. Let's find a way to subsidize the cost of that bulk mobile. If this truck is going around town picking up all these piles every single day, let's advertise on it. Let's put an LCD screen on it and let businesses advertise in the city of Homestead. I don't know, maybe it's an issue for off-site signage. We'll figure that out later. But if we can subsidize these costs, we can get these things done. Let's think outside the box. We need a space for our truck drivers to park their vehicles. These truck drivers are servicing businesses. They are family people. That's a different problem. That's why they're parking at home, because there is nowhere else for them to park. They're being arrested. Property owners are being arrested for allowing truck drivers to park on their property. And where are they going to go? They've got industrial land that they're not being able to use in industrial manners. This is an ongoing issue with the county, and maybe there's industrial property here in Homestead that we can rent out and create a parking lot. I don't know, just some ideas for brainstorming. Swale parking in the northwest section and other areas of Homestead is a huge problem. I'm not talking about front yard parking, swale, like between the sidewalk and the street. Are you allowed to park on that? Is that part of your property you're allowed to park on? I don't think so. You are? Well, yes, you're allowed to park on it. So maybe that needs to be in our code. Let's fix it, Homestead. But you have all my support. Let's get it done. Let's try to direct charge so that our compliant homeowners are not bearing the burden of this problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just, Councilwoman, by way of example, next time you're over that way, there's a multi-building duplex project on the northeast corner of Chrome Terrace and Northeast 11th Street. If you'll notice, it's entirely fenced in, and there's no ability for the residents to park within the property. And I questioned our Development Services Department at the time, and that was allowed to happen that way, rather than requiring, in this example, designated parking on site. And you see the trash and the mud holes and the dead grass and dust that results in that. You know, it's not appropriate anywhere, but it's on a main thoroughfare. And so, you know, to your point, I think that's a good example of, that's another code problem. That, Councilman?
Yeah, and also like 187th Avenue, south of Campbell, that industrial area back there where they've destroyed the right-of-way. I mean, it's totally destroyed there. And Charlie Crumpler had a good point, too. Some of the shopping carts I saw today were on that property that you might be talking about, the apartment complex there. I think there's a dumpster out there in the front, too. But maybe we set up a little operation there, and because obviously the residents are going to the Walmart, and unfortunately they may not have transportation. That's another subject altogether. But they're bringing the shopping carts, they're bringing their groceries home, then they're putting the shopping carts where the garbage is supposed to be picked up. So it just, I don't know that we set up a sting operation, clean it up, and then do a sting operation there, but at least educate those folks that are bringing the shopping carts home, and because you'll see them, they're there. And but that was just one of my thoughts as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Was there one more public comment?
Good evening. RC is the last name, 1760 Northwest 12th Avenue in the northwest section. The Home Riv development is not an industrial zone. There's over 9 commercial vehicles. My daughter works at a trauma center, works the night shift. She has to come home like around 5 a.m. and listens to semis, 18-wheelers, driving in and out of the neighborhood. I did not buy into an industrial zone. I live in a residential area. I also own properties outside of the city of Homestead, so I can compare. Code compliance comes by my farm on 362 Northwest, 362 Southwest 214th twice a week. I know them on a first-name basis. I believe the gentleman that used to be the code enforcement officer on the northwest section was Glenn Griffin, maybe? Tall black gentleman. I knew him more or less, saw him quite regularly, got fined by him. I paid my fine, and I learned my lesson. So we need to stiffen up the fines. I don't know who my code enforcement officer is now. I've never seen them on the northwest section. So we're going to get to know her or him, because we are going to start filing complaints on a regular basis. There's no reason why 18-wheelers should be parking. I have several pictures of them on 15th, on 11th, on the railway. There's a new truck that parks on the railway. So something has to be done. We have decided that between my family, we're going to have to enforce the code and start calling, because this is out of control. There's no reason why we have an RV with 7 people living, a tiki hut that's been turned into an apartment in the neighborhood. 2 months ago, there was a gentleman urinating on my fence line. I do not know who he is. I have never seen him. Found out he's renting an RV from one of our neighbors. So something has to be done. And I think the stiff fines and code enforcement, like I said, I own property in the city of Miami also. My renter parked their van on the sidewalk. I had a fine of $250 the first time. City of Miami does not play. They do the bulk pickup, and if you put it out the day before, you're getting a fine. So it's a day of. So we have to stiffen up the fines, and I'd like to meet who my code enforcement officer is on the northwest section, so they can come by and meet us. And
Absolutely. The whole department and the directors are here tonight. Have at it. All right. Thank you. I think this concludes that item. Very enlightening. And I think very productive as well. All right, our next item is tab 3, and it's the approval of the January 17th, 2023 Committee of the Whole minutes. Do we have a motion to approve? Moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Vice Mayor Guzman. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 4, motion to place car number 3790 on the council agenda. ITB number 202309, building demolition at the sports complex. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. On December 2nd, 2022, the Procurement and Contract Services Department issued ITB 2023-09, building demolitions at sports complex for the demolition of buildings at the Homestead Sports Complex to prepare for the upcoming Phase 1 project at the sports complex. Notices were sent to 525 vendors and 6 responses were received. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to award ITB 2023-09 to R2R Demolition, Inc. for the demolition of buildings at the Homestead Sports Complex in the amount of $110,000. This project is being funded by park impact fees.
Good. Questions or comments from council?
Yes.
Yes.
For 10,000?
What a deal.
Well, they better leave it squeaky clean, squeaky, not one pedacito de whatever.
Yes,
okay?
we'll make sure everything gets picked up, but the mayor's correct. We got to, I'm sorry? Oh, they're gonna, okay. They're going to take care of it, but the mayor's correct. We got an amazing deal on this one.
Compared to other demos that I know we've done. All right, is that a form of a motion? Second by the Vice Mayor. We have to open it up for public comment. I'll close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Next item is tab 5, motion to place car number 3774 on the council agenda, the purchase of 2,500 AMI smart meters and ARPA funding allocation. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. On July 26, 2017, Council approved the implementation of a pilot electric meter data collection advanced metering infrastructure system. On March 20th, 2019, Council approved the full implementation for the AMI system. Since that time, City Workforce has been installing the remaining infrastructure required for implementation. These meters are needed to continue the effort necessary to obtain 100% coverage of the city for the purposes of reading all meters within the territory remotely. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to award ITB 2023-14 to Annixter in the amount of $575,000 for the purchase of 2,500 AMI smart electric meters for the city's electric utility. This project will be funded through ARPA funds.
Thank you, sir. Any initial questions or comments from council? Vice Mayor Guzman.
Will they be able to turn power on and off remotely?
Excellent question, Vice Mayor. That's the end goal. Right now, you probably know if a resident comes in and opens an account, you have to wait 2 business days before the power or services are turned on. Once this system is fully implemented, we will be able to remotely turn people on and off. So that's the objective, yes.
And I say that because I'm sure a lot of you have received calls from elderly people that have said, hey, I need power because of whatever medical condition they have, and we've got to wait 2 or 3 days sometimes before power is on. So this will solve that problem.
Yes, sir.
I make it.
Do we have a second?
Eventually, it will solve the problem.
Yeah. Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'll open the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Next item is tab 6, motion to place car number 3637 on the council agenda, the traffic control jurisdiction agreement with Villas at Carmel. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This traffic control jurisdiction agreement allows Homestead police officers to enforce applicable traffic statutes on private roadways of Villas at Carmel. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into a traffic control jurisdiction agreement between the City of Homestead and the Villas at Carmel.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? This looks familiar with just a different subdivision name.
Yes.
Councilwoman?
Thank you. Is there a way to make this longer than a one-year agreement? Can it be indefinite until it's canceled?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's auto-renewed, so
Oh, perfect. Okay, I make a motion to approve. Thank
it is?
you.
Yeah.
Have a second? Second by the Vice Mayor. Open the public hearing. And I'll close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item is tab 7, motion to place car number 3785 on the agenda, ITB number 2023-01, fiber optic connection from the Homestead Police Department, the CRA to City Hall, and ARPA funding allocation. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This bid award is for the construction and installation of new underground fiber lines between City Hall, the Community Redevelopment Agency, and the Homestead Police Department. The installation of these new lines will ensure secure, reliable communications between the 3 city facilities, while at the same time providing for a robust storm-hardened fiber network. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to award ITB 2023-01 to Bortech Utilities and Maintenance, Inc. in the amount of $79,775.50 for the construction and installation of a new underground fiber connection between City Hall, the Community Redevelopment Agency, and the Homestead Police Department. This project will be funded through ARPA funds.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments from council? Vice Mayor.
Is there a way that we could get overhead fiber to downtown Homestead? So if we're gonna go ahead and open that up and change the line, can we pop a few of these things up and run it overhead so we can get fiber to downtown Homestead?
So for the city to provide the fiber connections for?
Like an access point to let AT&T, Comcast come and, branch off of that and provide that service to.
Well, this one would be a dedicated city conduit, and part of that is cybersecurity as well. We don't want other entities having access to it, but that's something definitely we can look into the downtown. I know we're doing a lot of undergrounding of infrastructure, and it could be as simple as adding additional conduits that are vacant and that we can actually lease to AT&T or whoever else wants to run fiber in the downtown.
Certainly, if the day ever comes when we replace the sidewalks, as long as they're torn up,
Yeah,
that would be the
exactly.
time to do that.
We'll definitely look into adding
And as
additional
many
conduits.
areas as we can. I mean, I think the whole city should have fiber.
I agree. But we'll do what we can. We'll take a look at the downtown and make sure at least we have those additional conduits put in.
To Councilwoman Avila, did they ever get the tower, for the enhanced signal? Because I still drive through certain areas there and you just lose signal.
Yeah, I believe there were 3 permits for towers, and they were built out.
That's as good as it's gonna get?
That's my understanding. Development
You have
Services
connection
can
issues too?
add to that, but, huh?
So she has connection issues too?
Yeah, it has improved, but there are still gaps, but it has improved a lot over the last couple of years since the towers got built out. But
So have we been able to determine why that happens? Why is it that there are certain dead spots? Do we just need to add more, or? Because as
Let's get a
a
report
city
on
in
that.
this day and age, we should not be having connection issues.
I mean,
get
we
a
could
report
reach
on
out. I'm sorry?
can we get a study on that?
Yeah, I'm sure AT&T and whatever other group who put the towers out did a propagation study, which I'm sure Development Services would have. But we can reach out to them as well and find out why there's a gap. We can inquire, but we cannot demand you need to add new towers or things of that nature, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's really on the private sector here that's handling it. Now, a lot of those people do use our actual water towers. They've co-located on our water towers. But once again, we're so spread out, there's definitely areas that are not being serviced. But we'll reach out and try to get an answer what the issue is.
So whenever we're enhancing our infrastructure, I'd like to utilize that so that we can make our city smarter. So just utilize that time. If we're going to open something up, we can make our city, technologically smarter for the future.
Agreed, Vice Mayor. And I mean, these are stakeholders in our community. We should include them in, as many meetings or public events that we can as possible. Let's invite them to the state of South Dade with the Chamber of Commerce, which I hope we have a lot of city presence at. When is that, tomorrow? Okay, please be there or be square. But absolutely, these are conversations that, as we're talking about, the Homestead Sports Complex, right? An AT&T field, Verizon field, they should get their service together before they do that, right?
And just to add on to the service issues out there on the east side, I learned a lot during the rodeo, and we have AT&T right on the water tower at the rodeo. And because there were so many people there on cell devices, the service went down. So it's a matter of them pumping up the available internet or whatever they call it technologically. But we added that one in the public shopping center, the tower, that was an AT&T tower exclusively. And I don't notice much difference in service out there either. So, and then Demetrius Knowles is always preaching to me, we got to put pressure on AT&T and the other service providers. He doesn't talk about the other ones because he's AT&T, but to ramp up. And I think for the Seafood Fest, he's actually doing that. And that's part of the problem out there is there's so much usage that the technology is behind the wave of people that are using all the devices. So we don't know what happens with that technology, but it gets used up. So that's all. That's my 2 cents.
And it's a citywide problem.
And if you can, let them know that we'd like to learn more. It's an opportunity for them to tell us what are the challenges that they have and how can we work together and create a better partnership. So.
Yeah, we definitely have contacts with AT&T, and I'll talk to IT so they can invite them, maybe do a presentation. Okay.
Thank you all. So I'll open a public hearing, public comment on this item. Close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Pearl, next item is tab 8, motion to place car number 3805 on the council agenda, settlement of all claims made by Alex Caraballo and Maria Santiago.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 8, staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution approving the settlement of all claims made by Alex Caraballo and Maria Santiago as personal representative of the estate of Lillian Caraballo for the total amount of $30,000. This was an automobile accident case. We had discussed this, and this will settle both all claims relating to the decedent as well as the personal injury claims for the occupant of the vehicle.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from council? Do we have a motion to approve? Moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Any public comment? Close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item is tab 9, motion to place car number 3806 on the council agenda, settlement of all claims made by Travis Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution approving the settlement of all claims made by Travis Johnson for the total amount of $15,000. Again, this was an automobile accident claim, and this will extinguish the lawsuit and compensate the plaintiff for all injuries sustained in the accident.
Motion to approve? Motion. Moved by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Public hearing, public comment. We'll close the public comment portion. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, next item. We really to the end of the agenda now? Okay. It's car number 3800, the Public Art Committee Council discussion. Mr. Manager, is that you?
Yeah, Mayor. Yes, Mayor. At the November 16th, 2022 City Council meeting, Council directed staff to further research the public art program and Council's ability to serve as an interim committee until a new committee can be seated. There was a technical issue. It's been resolved. And so my understanding, and I'll kind of turn it over to Matt, is that the council can sit as the committee at this point since there isn't a fully staffed Public Art Committee until the committee is fully staffed as well. So,
okay, thank you. Mr. Pearl?
So just to clarify a little bit, we currently don't have an active body because we lack the membership to hold a quorum. It is just a recommending body, so ultimately the final decisions are all yours. And so if there's something that you would like to move forward with in the interim, based on the work plan. If you'd like direct staff to put out a call to the artist, whatever it is, then you have the power to go ahead and do that. So I think any direction you want to give staff, based on that understanding, we'll take it.
Very good. So until we decide not to act as the Public Art Committee, we have that ability. And I brought this forward as I saw the membership dwindling. In many circumstances, we held special call meetings and workshops that bumped those meetings. Certainly, you know, that body doesn't get the deference that we get. So, you know, I wanted to start the discussion about our acting in that capacity, at least for a period of time, so that their plan, the recommended plan that we considered with the master plan, can go ahead and move forward. So, Mr. Pearl, let me ask you, in the proper context, given the posture tonight, is this just, you know, to put it on a council agenda for further discussion and direction as to a given component of the work program that was submitted?
Yes, I would treat it like that, because this is just a discussion about, I think, what your authority is. If you want to take, you know, any action, because COW agendas, we're pushing things on to consent by and large. So if there's a specific project that you'd like to see move forward, if you would like to put it under your business, or any of you would care to put it under your business at the next council meeting, then staff will take direction. You know, you can make the motion to either issue the call. I'm not sure where you're intending on going. If it's to amend the plan, I think a little background information would be useful. If it's to put forth a call, I think for something that's incorporated in the plan now, I think a motion would be sufficient at the council meeting.
Okay. And I think, just to clarify, I believe, Councilwoman Avila, your request is being channeled through staff as to the parameters that the underpass, the overpass, whatever you want to call it, that's in the inquiry stage, and once that's determined, it can come back to us.
My goal was to have it as part of the plan until we decide it's not feasible. That's my goal. Now, I have a recommendation. I mean, we have our COW meetings. We have an LPA in front of our council. Can we have our, I really don't want this to dwindle. I want this plan to continue. I want us to continue making it a priority. If we can include or ahead of our COW meeting, not a 2-hour, public art meeting, but at least touch base on the plan. What are some, decisions we have to make to help staff continuing to move the ball forward? I feel comfortable with having that at the beginning of prior to our COW meeting.
Right, and as, kind of a dedicated public art committee. I mean,
Exactly.
Yes, not
And
at the
maybe on
end,
months-
not at the tail end of a
Right, and-
3-hour meeting.
Exactly, and perhaps not on the months that we have a CRA meeting, so it'll, flip-flop like that. But I'm comfortable with that, and I would like for the council to, support adding the underpass project to the master plan so that we can continue to have staff dedicate time working on it, and we can discuss it at our public art meetings.
And they are anyway. And just to clarify, Mr. Manager, one of the items that was held in abeyance from the initial plan was a proposed statue honoring both Mr. and Mrs. Chrome. And is it accurate to say that that information has been reviewed, researched, and vetted, and that it's a recommendation that if any Chrome statue goes forward, it be solely Mr. Chrome? Is that a fair assessment?
You are correct, Mayor.
Okay. And just, for some future transparency, that was in, the Chrome statue was in the initial plan, and I'd like us to consider restoring that to the plan as well as inserting yours. I think we all understand that the Globe artist has withdrawn from that project, so that there is a hole in that work plan at this point. I've also been contacted by an artist who's very well known throughout the country in not only casting bronzes but advising and working with governments. And when we have a meeting on a day that he can be here, he's going to kind of give us a primer on how to make sure we do a full-blown Carl to artist so that we throw that net wide enough so that we're not limiting ourselves. I mean, we've had that same discussion in the different contexts with City Hall, that maybe the net could have been wider, and I certainly want to have as many artists as possible. You know, this is very timely with the discussion of the phase one of the park, and I think the sculpture garden was included there, but that fund continues to grow, and we've not even commissioned or really taken the first steps to commission any item that's going forward. So I think, do you have the direction and the?
Yeah, but for the sake of expediency, I know we're discussing maybe having a special meeting, but I've heard two changes that you'd like to see to the work program right now. So is it the will of the council that those two proposed amendments just be placed on the council agenda? Because you can make a motion to approve and to amend the work plan to incorporate the two projects we're discussing, as opposed to waiting for a special
So you
meeting.
need a motion to that effect to add the underpass mural and restoration of the William J. Crome bronze
And
statue
then
back into the work plan.
We would place the amended work plan on the council meeting agenda for your approval.
Right.
If
So
that's-
those would be reinserted, the globe of hands would be taken out. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just had a concern. The last we had this conversation about the bronze statue, I had asked for information because I had heard that this could be, you know, potentially controversial. I haven't heard anything since.
Yeah, just on the one-on-ones, and it was a while, Councilwoman. I can't remember when. I want to say it was
But
October.
like
or-
in writing, like what do we
I-
research? What do we find? Because I need to feel comfortable with it. I mean, if the majority wants to add it back, that's fine. But I have not read or seen anything.
So
I will send the report out to
There's
all of
time
you.
to provide that so you can be versed at the
Okay.
at consideration.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
staff
my-
did, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for that. And my other point was, although I appreciate the work that this committee has done with this work plan, but I don't want to be boxed in to only what's in the plan. Because I come up with ideas, I
always
go
subject to
places, I
amendment.
see things. I know you brought forth the project. Just saw something recently, an art installation in Coral Gables. Sorry, spent a lot of time there. I work there. And I just don't want to be boxed in, so I just want that to be crystal clear. Like if I come up with an idea that I think works for the city, I'm going to bring it forth. So don't hit me over the head with this plan that it's not in this plan. Don't box me.
No, not at
Agreed,
all. Not at all.
100%. And I want to add for the record that I find this to be an excellent tool and a great opportunity for us to take inspiration from, but it absolutely in no way is it written in stone. We make the decision as the council members here, and like I said earlier with the sports complex plan, I work really well when I've got something to start with. So we can add to this, we can prioritize different projects, we can draw inspiration from anywhere around the world. Thank you.
And I'm fairly certain that when we have this full discussion, Councilwoman Bailey has a really big mural in mind for a certain, and we won't steal her thunder, and probably add that to the plan as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just out of curiosity, is the artist you're speaking about Romero Brito?
No, this is a bronze artist.
Okay, all right, thank you. He seems to work a lot with governments.
No, he does, and maybe we can get him to splash something on the side of the new bathroom at the sports complex. Brito Park, whatever it may be. Mr. Pearl, I know you, okay, do we have a motion and a second to forward the the second amended work plan, I guess we need to call it. It's already an amended work plan. Now, is that correct, Mr. Hennis? Whatever we need to call it, okay. We have a motion by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Yes.
And just for a little more discussion, I think that the exercise of amending the plan is not so much to keep us under control, and I'm saying it out loud so that if there's a question in the future, you know, this is in order to be able to pass it along in the future to a committee, hopefully. And then they have our vision and our plan to continue working with. So I agree. Don't tell me it's not in the plan and we can't talk about it or whatever.
You know, and we have a master plan as an overall guideline, and this annual work plan is the offshoot of a master plan that we've approved.
Would you
Vice
open it
Mayor.
up for public comment?
I will. Any public comment? Ms. Sorrentino, anything to add to the discussion at this point? We have the Sorrentino seal of approval. We're good to go. All right, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Pearl, I know you have something you need to request?
I do. I need to request 2 executive sessions, Mayor. One in the matter of Vanessa Rosales as personal representative of the estate of Jeremiah Calderon of the City of Homestead et al., case number 2023-002344 in Miami-Dade Circuit Court. And the second one is Hernandez as personal representative of the estate of Terrence Valdivia and survivors, and Norma Vargas as personal representative of Rihanna Vargas and survivors, plaintiffs for City of Homestead, case number 2023-001762, CA01 in Miami-Dade County Circuit Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps, do we have, maybe on the 21st, we already have a shade session scheduled? Does that give you enough time?
It's not a matter of preparation time. It's a matter of time in the evening and when you can all get here and when we're starting the meeting. This one will probably take some time. I'd like to set aside
So
at least
maybe not a good time.
At least 45 minutes to an hour, probably.
Okay, so maybe prior to the council meeting the following night, since we do have a pretty lengthy
Yes.
discussion on the 21st.
So
maybe we can do it the 22nd?
That would be my
Prior to
hope.
council? Okay, whatever can work out.
Okay.
All right, anything further from council? None appearing, motion to approve? Want me to do adjourn? All in favor? All right, good night, everybody, thank you.